Halloween
Forever.
Guys, what does Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, like when they were out on the run, you know, they were out on the highway killing people, when they were low on cash, what did they, did you hear about what they used to eat when they were low on cash?
No. What?
No, Brian.
Ramen. Welcome, boys and ghouls, to a fucking showdown.
You can't eat that with
Halloween is
chopsticks.
forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
It's Otis Toole.
Otis? Otis? Whatever.
They did,
Fuck
but
that
they
guy.
did call him Otis in the movie. Let's
I was
be
going to
real.
say, yeah.
It is
yeah.
Otis, though.
But the movie isn't those guys.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Definitely not. We'll get into it, guys, but you get it, raw men, like they're, you know.
Yeah, we
raw.
get it.
Yeah,
they weren't
yeah.
cannibals, though. They were just
I
kinda
know,
shitty
but I'm
people.
trying to tie the joke into the characters in the movies we're
That
talking
was
about.
like you took a good joke and then
Yeah.
put it in this one and it made it a bad joke.
Yeah. Yep. That's usually the formula that I'm going for. Guys, we are gonna talk. It's February, okay? Just gotta
Ooh,
break it
did you
down.
guys see what I named the Zoom call?
Yeah, FeBREWary.
This is how we teach people
There
what
you go.
this month is you put BREWARY.
I appreciate the commitment.
Can I also quickly correct Brian's joke just really fast? It's just.
You're giving it too much attention, but
I know,
sure.
but I can make it into a good joke now.
Oh, you're gonna punch it up. Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I like that.
Yeah. So, what did Jeffrey Dahmer eat in college?
That's it.
Ramen. That would have been
Yeah.
way better. I was trying to make it relevant to this, but I guess it ultimately was throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I'm just surprised you didn't come in with like an incest joke because that's actually what would have been a little bit more.
Well, I liked it. It's a little weird because normally you're the one bringing the incest.
I knew this was going to come into play, and I was going to turn it around and I'll say, "Hey, you're the one bringing incest into the show."
I just want to say, guys, right off the bat, and we've been doing this podcast for how long? Year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
I've never been the one to bring the incest. That's just not really what I do, but it seems to be very much what Meg does. And now I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern with Steve, too.
I think this is the second time I've brought incest.
Yeah, he brought a couple. This is not the first. I know that.
It's not the first.
Meg, 40, 50 times. She's had movies specifically about incest.
She started
We're
the
talking
show with
horror.
incest.
Incest is horrific. Okay, guys?
Sure,
Let's be
sure.
real.
It's just when there's a lot of like repeat bringing it up, it's just like,
I don't know what you're trying to
on?
insinuate right now,
I just
Brian.
am trying to get to the
but
bottom of this. It's just
It's
a lot to
terrifying to
think
me.
about.
That's why.
Guys, we're not talking about incest. We're a little bit talking about incest. What we're mostly talking about is our showdown episode for the fucking horseshit month of February, which is the topic of which is micro budget gems. That's what you picked for us. So we're talking about movies that had a very, very small budget. I think we put the cap at somewhere around $300,000 to $400,000. Obviously, we got to deal with inflation and all that. We're not being super strict about it, but we are talking specifically about extremely low budget horror flicks. So as far as the genre is concerned, like there's got a lot of things we can go in different directions there. We have 2 serial killer movies. We got one zombie ? Movie, which is mine. But we're going to be jumping around to a couple different genres here today. So it's going to be real fun. We're going to talk about them here, movies. However, before we do that, I do want to remind you, if you want to help us to pick our topics for the showdown episodes or minisodes or whatever, follow us on the social medias at Halloween is Forever or some variation on that. Search Halloween is Forever on your favorite social media apps, on the Instagrams and Twitters and the TikToks and Facebooks and all that stuff. And you could suggest stuff for us. You should also follow us for just some general spooky ooky content on the internet. And if you are so inclined and you like the show, write us, I know everybody says this, and go write us a review. It helps the podcast. It does. But also, listen, do you like stickers? Listen up, you bitches. Do you like stickers? I know the answer is yes. Everybody loves stickers. If you review us, you screenshot it, you send it to me, I'll send you some damn old stickers in the mail. DM me on the Instagrams. All right, guys, before we get into these 3 flicks, which, boy howdy, my movie was a feel good romp compared to, I've seen Texas Chainsaw a lot of times. I've seen Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is Steve's movie, once, if not twice before. I think twice. I forgot how just like it makes Maniac seem like, the ending of Shawshank Redemption or something like that. Like, it is just absolutely dreadfully brutal and depressing. But yeah, before we do that, before we get into all that nonsense, let's just talk about some beers. Do we got any beers in February?
Is it FeBREWary for Meg?
Yeah.
FeBREWary.
What are you drinking,
I already have
Meg?
a problem saying brewery. Like, I already have an issue. And now you're like, nothing I ever could address as a child. And now we're fucking bringing it back. And I'm really upset with you, Steve. Or Brian. Wow.
I say Febberary.
Do you say Febber?
Febberary.
Febberary.
I take a whole syllable. I'm just going to start calling it Febberary.
Yeah, Febberary. That sounds like a berry. Oops,
I was going to say
what
oops,
would be a
Febberries.
Febberary? A FeBREWary.
Sherry's berries on Febberary?
Febberary
it would
sounds
be like a cloudberry or a gooseberry. It would be something like that.
I was imagining, I immediately thought of like Boo Berry. I thought of the monster cereals, and Febberary is like, I don't know, a Feb sounds like some sort of like inside slang term for like a gimp or something like that. I just am imagining a monster cereal character called Febberary, and it's just like this guy with a gag ball in his mouth.
It does have less days, so it does have a handicap.
That's I'm not that kind of gimp.
Jesus, Meg. Is this the 50s? Can't talk like that anymore. We're talking Febberries and Domberries, and you're being fucking gross.
You're making fun of people with disabilities.
Though?
Dom, like like a dominatrix,
That's what exactly. And you saw calling me gross? Let's not kink shame.
You're making fun of people with disabilities,
I'm not
Meg.
making fun
yes,
of anyone.
you are.
I'm just saying it has less days. So
We
it doesn't
heard you. We heard you.
I literally heard you with my own ears.
My words.
Ugh, Meg
Per
hates people with
usual,
disabilities.
Manipulating what I say.
You make it so easy. Sometimes you say things, it's just like a beautiful piece of clay. You can just mold it into whatever you want.
Meg, stop letting us gaslight you and tell us what you're drinking.
Yeah, what's your beer, for Christ's sake?
All right. Well, damn January is over. So I picked up a crowler of beer from Golden Age. I was there this past week. Yep. And I got the Foam Valley Pills that they did with Old Thunder. So I get a twofer today. It's real nice. Yeah. Nice. Real nice. I definitely had to commit to a crowler, and that's fine. But I'm not drinking it out of the crowler. Got a little classy here, You got
a nice dimpled mug.
For the fans. Yeah.
How is it? How's the pills?
Real nice. Super clean. Like mild hop character. Body, I would probably want a little carb, but I also have a crowler, so that could also be the case.
Yeah, carbonation get all dicked up in them things.
Yeah. Oh, I also, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I could get this beer regularly, so I switched up my shit show beer as my sidecar to the Montucky Cold Snack.
We got cold snacks?
Got some cold snacks at my house now. Yeah, so that's going to be what I'm going to be sipping on afterwards. Or maybe while.
It's weird. The cold snacks, I appreciate that it's just 100% marketing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
it's 1,000% marketing.
Yeah.
It's just, but they do have a great bar call, like bucket of cold snacks. Hey, cold snacks. You love it because it's got the horse on it.
It's got a horse.
Yeah.
No, but also
horses rule everything around me.
I would feel like I should be wearing a cowboy hat. And I should tip it for you guys. No, but it is a beautiful can. It is like has all the colors, and even just it also reminds me of Deftones too.
Oh yeah, the White Pony album.
Yeah. So a little bit of that.
Deftones is a band that I never got into. And it's not because what I hear from them I don't like. It's because of like a very specific one or two people in my life that I didn't like that were big Deftones fans. You know what I'm talking about?
You're doing a disservice to yourself.
I know. There's just like a couple of kids I grew up with that were obsessed with Deftones. I'm like, these guys were douchebags.
Yeah.
I was the same way with Tool for a long time, but then I got into Tool. So
Tool's still in that category. I mean, not really. Like, no one's ruined it for me, but like people who love Tool, they might get offended. But I'm just like, there's just so much hype, and like, there's songs that I like, but like, I just never got into them.
Yeah.
But
people are super into Tool. Like, they're really fucking into it.
Let me get into them on my own time, guys. Okay,
get out of my face with the Tool.
I had to get into it in my own time, but Tool fandom is the same as anime fandom, and it's just like your fan bases were always toxic all through the 90s and up to the 2000s.
Yeah.
You just got to enjoy it on your own, not tell people that you're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a behind closed doors type of band to listen to. All right, Steve, what are you sipping on there? Are you sipping on some sort of, I think it looks like some sort of coffee? Is that a coffee situation?
Yeah, it's some sort of situation.
Yeah.
Steve's got a situation here.
Steve's got it entered into a situation.
When I was at the Wine and Spirits picking up my soju, as people remember from last episode, I found another thing there, and it was on the clearance rack, so I bought it, of course. But it's this. I guess there's a company out in the Philly area called Trinity Flavors, and they do RTDs.
I already hate it.
Sure. But they make this thing called an iced Irish coffee, and it's a 9% RTD that's made with the La Colombe coffee, and Faber liquor. It's kind of not good. I don't like it. All makes
sense why it was on clearance, but
Well, this is the thing. I imagine the clerks at that liquor store by Steve's house, they're like, God damn, nobody's bought this. Should we throw it away? They're like, nah, put it on the clearance rack. Steve will drink it.
I will try things on the clearance rack. Because look, it was, like I said, it's 9% and it came in a 4-pack, and that 4-pack was only $7.50.
That's a good deal.
How do you beat that?
It's a hot price.
It tricked me.
That's what we call it.
I don't think that was tricking you, Steve, at all.
You got what you paid for.
Yeah.
It was tricking me.
That is what we call in the business a hot price. Gotta try it. It's a hot price.
It was officially more than half off because they had regular espresso martini ones there that were $16.99 for a 4-pack. I was like,
what? Like, is there? I feel like there's like cult following with like these like coffee related drinks, and I'm not saying the RTD like level, but I'm. This is just a side story anecdote here. That was a double entendre there, but we sold like 20 plus espresso martinis last night at work. Literally.
Weird.
Well, coffee flavored things are always popular, but especially in the chilly months, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love a coffee. I mean, I like coffee. I drink coffee every single day all year round. But like, as far as coffee beers, definitely in the chilly months, I'm turning to a coffee beer, although I'm kind of drinking coffee beer whenever.
I think people forgot, though, that there is actually espresso in it. So I'm like, I'm a hard cut off coffee at like 2:00 at the latest, and that's a stretch.
I just had a cup of coffee like an hour ago. Not even.
You're psychotic though. You're like a different category.
I'm addicted to caffeine. Yes, desperately and completely addicted. Does this have caffeine in it, Steve, or is it just coffee flavored?
Well, I know it's made by the local La Colombe. Yeah. So it's got that in
Colombe,
it.
I think.
Colombe. Yeah, so it's got that in it. So I assume it has actual coffee in it. But I also I've been trying to put my cutoff at pre 7:00.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got to
8 minutes.
Switch over to the sweepy time tea.
I can get my chamomiles in.
Can we have a sleepy time t-shirt?
Something, but it's going to be sweepy time.
Yeah,
sweepy time. But it's actually just Brian chugging espresso.
Or it's sweepy time tea. And it's just that little bear sitting in the chair, with his little, nightcap on. But somebody's coming up behind him with like a bottle of ether, like putting it over his face. It just says "Sweepy time."
Sweepy time for the bell.
Oh boy, I am drinking.
Solid.
Yeah, I'm drinking something that's kind of out of my normal habits here. I am actually,
So excited.
believe it or not, drinking a hazy IPA.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm
Do
drinking.
you hate yourself today?
No. We made one over at the Sly Forks, and it's. I like that it's kind of making fun of itself. This label, I kind of thought it turned out pretty nice. It's called Baby Sparkles Double Dry Hyped IPA.
Nice.
Yeah,
I do like that a lot, actually.
But it is,
I would have bought
actually-
it just because I was like, yeah.
it's
Fuck
also
you, ADIPs.
6.4%. So it's like it's not a melt your face off. Like ours don't have big giant hop burn and all that bullshit like a lot of other ones do. So it's got the mouthfeel. Obviously it's intensely dry hopped, but it's not hop burn. It's not boozy. Just like a relatively nice, easy drinking hazy IPA. But it's got like, I just don't drink these beers that often. I do have a backup of pills, as you might expect. But man, when you poured this thing into the fucking glass, you could smell it from a foot away as soon as you started to pour it. But yeah, I've actually been, you know what? I'm not gonna bullshit. I've been getting a little bit back into the IPA scene lately, especially with, I got a little kind of fun project started up here that I'm going to be doing on the beer side. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about it down the road. But it has caused me to step outside of my grumpy old man lager only comfort zone as of late,
hate it.
which has been kind of fun. It's kind of re-energized my, sense of whimsy and wonder around craft beer, which is kind of fun.
I hate
So
that
you can
more.
you can get back into soft baby kisses.
Yeah. And I'm gonna start drinking. I'm just gonna start chugging puree, just literally out of the 5-gallon
Hell
bucket.
yes. Hell yes. Jelly donuts.
All right. With the Bias out of the way, let's get into these movies. For those of you who are maybe new to the show, or this is your first Showdown episode, perhaps, this is how it goes. We're going to talk about the movie that we selected that was associated with the topic that you, our social media friends and listeners, helped us pick, which was micro-budget gems. We each picked a movie associated with it. We're each going to talk a little bit about that movie. We're going to argue about it a little bit. Somebody's going to come out with a pillowcase full of tacks, throw them on the mat. Somebody else is going to come out there hanging vertical suplex into a chair or into a table, something like that. Somebody's going to get the belt upside the head. Ultimately, we're going to vote. Somebody's going to end up taking home that motherfucking championship strap for the month of February. I regret to inform you, Meg is the defending champ, which means...
I was also going to add that I think, can we agree, though, that I would probably be the one to come out with tax? I think I would.
Yeah, I would say you remind me more of like the hardcore champ type character, right?
I would definitely get violent.
Yeah, I'm more of I picture myself as more of a Bret Hart type. You know what I mean? I'm more of a technician in the ring. Meg's coming out Dudley Boy style, just for bringing chairs down the ramp with her. Where's Steve at? Steve's more of, I feel like Steve got more of the gravitas. Steve's more of a taker type.
Taker, Kane, in that reign. Yeah. So I'll do fucked up stuff, but it doesn't have to be every match.
No, it's not gonna be every match. All right. So what that means is Meg gets to pick, the order in which we do this sumbitch. So what's going to happen here?
I'm for sure. I think I'm going to go in the middle, but I'm trying to decide because
it's funny how that's become the norm. Like it used to be that you wanted to go last or first, but now whoever picks puts themselves in the middle. I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
You're just so become observant.
That's just become the thing. Listen, I don't become the best there is, best was, best there ever will be by not being observant. If I'm going to be a technician of the game.
But I'm trying to decide, and this shouldn't take that long, but of like, Brian, you're a wild card because you're like, I'm going to keep it tight tonight. I'm gonna like no BS. So I'm like,
I'm going to try, yes, because I usually talk way too much.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have Brian. I think I'm gonna have you go last. I think I'm gonna have Steve started out.
Shit. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I also feel like oftentimes when I go last, because you guys talk so much, I just like fly through my shit.
Well, yeah, listen, it's your decision. This isn't a fucking therapy session, Meg. You tell us strategy. What to
do. It's a strategy. Sometimes we just like to wear you down and make you go, as fast as possible through your stuff.
Wow.
Because you're tired and you want to go to bed.
I won. Let's remember that. I couldn't wink properly there. Sorry, guys.
You really botched that wink pretty hard.
Audio wink. For the audience.
A real botch job on that wink.
Let's fucking rock and roll.
All right, Steve, you're up.
Okie dokie then. Yes. So I picked Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This was made by John McNaughton all the way back in the year of 1986. And
I didn't realize this movie's that old, actually.
Yeah, it actually, it had the version that is on Tubi is supposedly the 30th year anniversary version. So, so if you watch it on there, then you see that on the cover art. And just to stick with the micro budget thing, to point that out, it was made for around $110,000. $110,000. And then if you do the inflation, it's like, it's almost like it's over $250,000 now. So that's still way under the micro budget thing. And basically, if you watch this movie and you've watched any Frank Henenlotter, John McNaughton is to Chicago what Frank Henenlotter is to downtown New York City in the 80s.
It's a midtown. Yeah, exactly. I just realized I didn't realize this until just now. The weird, I think it was only a 1-season show that like a lot of people talk about as like one of the shows, those great shows that were canceled too soon. John from Cincinnati. He directed this. He directed John from Cincinnati, or at least an episode of John from Cincinnati.
Interesting.
Yeah, really left field. I'm just seeing that now.
Yeah, the other thing that popped out to me that John McNaughton directed, and he directed it right after Henry, was a movie called The Borrower. I don't know. I feel like this is a movie you probably would have seen, but you would remember it. It's about an alien who comes to Earth and then has to rip off people's heads, and he keeps changing people's heads.
I have seen this. Yes, I'm now looking at screenshots from it. I didn't recognize the name, but I have seen this.
Yeah, this is a movie I probably haven't seen since the 90s, but I was way too young when I did see it because the whole plot is ripping heads off and exchanging heads, and I saw that way too young, and I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's like funny. It's a comedy. I was going to say it's like it's like a black comedy, I guess,
but it's not funny. Ha.
There's probably some funny but
no, it is it's definitely like a tongue-in-cheek funny.
But again, this is back to like him being a Frank Henenlotter type, because it's a very, probably, it's been forever since I've seen the movie, but I bet it falls right in line with like Frankenhooker and Basket Case of just being fucking weird and gross and silly. But John McNaughton is that to Chicago, and you can see that all through Henry, because this is probably the best thing that Henry does as a film, is that it uses just the existing world as much as possible to save money. But also, like, you get plenty of street shots on Chicago. You see a lot of like gas stations and just names of businesses, things you probably wouldn't be able to get away with nowadays, of just putting in little grocery shops and all that. They're filming up and down the highways. They're filming in small neighborhoods, and that's one of the most impressive things, I think. It's just like how many locations are in this film. Yeah, you feel like this is not a road movie, but like a movie that happens across a wide expanse.
But I think I think that's like a good way to bring in, because I think in some of like the full story between Otis and Henry was like they did travel around, like they were like going on. So I think like that even feeds into that. They were killers. Yeah, it's funny that you kind of alluded to the fact that this wasn't based on, but I know you're being tongue in cheek, but obviously this is loosely based on, the real life serial killers of Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole. And they were known for being like kind of highway killers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, especially Henry Lee Lucas, he was much more of a drifter than Otis Toole was. But yeah, at some point, like as I already mentioned, this film occurs in Chicago, and this is kind of the differences. This film occurs in Chicago, and like it's basically occurring in the 80s, 85, 86. But at that point, both Lucas and Toole had already been imprisoned.
Right.
So like they operated 60s all the way to the 80s, and I think Lucas hooked up with Toole in the 70s.
Yeah.
And they both operated much more in Florida. Like they're in the Jacksonville area for a long time.
Yeah, they are. I always imagined, because I actually probably didn't see this movie for the first time until probably the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that. And I already had, listened to or read, true crime stuff about the real life killers that this is loosely based on. And I always imagined them as like some redneck ass, Southern Georgia, Northern Florida, straight up white trash, dirt balls. Like I never thought of them as being in a city like Chicago or being able to exist in this giant metro area. They were just like kind of white trash drifters in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
And like they get some elements of this right, and some elements are twisted to fit the film more. And like you're saying, that's one of them just kind of being more, urban, city sprawl, kind of just hunting in the shadows of the city of Chicago. That's something they do change. Like I said, they're much more like drifter and like just hanging around in Florida doing drifter shit in Florida.
Which AK just doing Florida shit.
Existing in Florida.
All the stories of a man from Florida.
Yeah. I mean, the original Florida man may have been Otis Toole. Just might have been him.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, they changed his name to Otis, but he's played by Tom Towles, and people will recognize him more from probably the Rob Zombie films House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. He plays Sheriff Whitell in those films. So I think that's his more recent work. But I would say I think his characterization in this film is something they get like way on point, because like Otis Toole was just like this low IQ, like male prostitute, and just like he was a dumb animal that had basically no morals.
Yeah, it's weird with this one because they try to at times in this movie paint him as slightly sympathetic in certain ways, whereas like he has a job, he's like he sells drugs and like works at he works at a garage or something like that.
He just works at a gas station. Like this is back when gas stations also had garages, but
but like in real life he was way more not in society. Like he was not in mainstream society. Like he was just never really had a job, from what I understand. He was just a prostitute.
But I think
But he did have poo brains in real life. And he
I was going to say, because I feel like both of them were, and I think the only like Henry, I think they painted a little bit differently. But like, because like they're both like in all like historical records of them are like idiots. They're fucking illiterate, like uneducated. But I agree that they did a good job with. I think they played Otis to be more of this like almost a goofball sidekick than Henry. Yeah. So, and I think Henry was kind of just as much, So
the way they paint Otis in the film is like he is like this, kind of this trying to reform because he's out of prison, and like we learned that he met Henry in prison, which is not how the real story went. But Otis is like, he seems like he's trying to reform by being somebody who's working at a gas station, being part of society. He's giving Henry a place to live, so he seems like he's trying to be a good person. And then it's like Henry turns him. He unlocks or unleashes some part of him.
Like he teaches him how to kill, kind of. Yeah.
Well, no. I would almost say it's like he like that part of Otis was like asleep and they made it come alive because I feel like the way their dynamic works is like Henry was always telling Otis in the movie to like, not fuck his sister or, you know what I mean? Like, or not treat her poorly versus like, so that like either tells us that that's just like this instinctual thing because Otis's sister comes to visit and it's there, or by being around Henry, it's somehow unlocked in that way.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's Henry like refining him as well, trying to make him, much more of an acceptable social person to like the way Henry believes, because Henry has his own damage of like from the incest and the beatings and everything that he suffered, which is another thing they get correct between the real Henry Lee Lucas and Henry the character, is that like his mother was a prostitute and like his father was infirmed and his mom was bringing money in by being a prostitute, and then like was also making Henry watch, beating Henry, making Henry wear women's clothes. So just like that's why you get all these weird sympathetic things between him and Becky in the film, because like that's the only time Henry's vulnerable, it seems, at least. But yeah, like Henry refines Otis to not basically just not behave the way that their upbringing brought them to, rather than, it feels like there's a conversation Henry and Otis have after Henry kills both of the prostitutes that's in the car with them. Yeah. And Henry's having this conversation with Otis and, asking him, is like, have you not ever killed before? And just like the way Otis is going about it, it sounds almost like Otis like was in the war or in a war at some point, like whether Vietnam or Korea, like, and he had to kill in that war.
Yeah, he said something about, I don't know if he uses the phrase self-defense, but he like, I seem to remember him suggesting it was like, it was only if he was in danger kind of thing or something.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, Otis doesn't kill for fun the way Henry does.
It's apparently like an outlet.
Yeah. And it's like Henry is just like, he has to do it. Like, and like you get that sense from the very beginning of the film, because you start with these like drama tableaus of just like people who have been brutally murdered, and you just get these slow pans across like these tableaus because like nobody's moving, nothing else is really going on, with the exception of the one where you follow the milk jug down the creek. There's like no life to the rest of the film or to the rest of the frame that you see.
Yeah.
And then I'm always curious if like the time and place of it, like, and I don't know if you're referring to even the imagery of like all the people that he killed that we saw. Is that what you're referring to? Okay.
Yeah. Like the openings. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was almost curious if that was like some sort of ploy for the time and place, that like that was the easiest and best way to get across the severity of how much Henry was killed, or even to do it faster, or if it was like just, again, the budget thing. I don't know.
It's kind of both, because so I mean, budgetary wise, just by filming that tableau, like especially like the prostitute that's in the bathroom, like you can tell it's such a brutal scene of violence, because like her clothes are all ripped, she has a bottle shoved in her face, her face is all cut up and everything. So like you can infer all the brutality, and then the soundtrack reinforces it with the background of just like you can hear like Henry screaming and her screaming. And so they don't have to film all of the steps it would take to, rent out a hotel room for a couple days and stab, somebody in the face with a bottle, get that effect going. You don't have to do all that. So budgetary wise, it helps it. But then also thematically, they have so many of these tableaus, because you get probably 4 or 5, across, various destinations of like, one in the creek, one in the grocery store of the old couple that's been shot. You have, the prostitute. So you get a sense of all the people that Henry's killed. And then it's further like juxtaposed by the cuts between those tableaus to just Henry's cruise around in his car listening to some rock and roll.
Yeah, he's just being cooling out, being cool.
Yeah. I think that's what like my comment is like around is the way they decided to do that. Again, I always bring my time and place of it because I think at the time that could be really a really effective thing if that's not what you're used to seeing, and seeing those images like that could be really fucked up. However, I almost felt like this movie made Otis almost seem more like the person who needed to constantly kill versus like Henry. We saw him kill, but we didn't see him as kill as like I feel like what those scenes played it out to be. So I don't think there was always the exact connection for me, at least, like the way I saw this. And I'm hoping it comes across correctly the way I'm saying it. But
no, I see what you're saying.
I feel like there's a little bit of disconnect
him in the act as much,
right?
You know, it was
like
always after the fact.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea was they wanted to demonstrate that for Henry, it's just an everyday part of life or every week part of life, and he was almost casual in the way he did it.
But if that's the case, though, too, I almost felt like those scenes almost felt ineffective because I didn't have the connection between the two.
Yeah,
and I don't know how they could have done that,
sometimes it wasn't for me. Like, for example, so first of all, I think that the opening scenes, you know, and why they did them as these like almost still images, you know, in motion that Steve was talking about is several of those, if not all of them, were based on real life crime scene photos of Henry Lee Lucas victims.
Or at least what he confessed to.
What he confessed to, right?
He confessed to a lot, which is also the weird thing. You know what I mean?
He ended up saying at some point he killed like 500,000 people or something like that. Like he was a bullshit. He was full of shit. So he did get convicted of, you know, 10 or 12 killings or something like that. But at some point he said he killed 800 people or something. So he's definitely full of shit. But those were based on, you know, crime scene or descriptions from him. So maybe that's where they wanted to the torn from the headlines kind of angle they wanted to play a little bit. I thought at some points, which like later we'll talk about some of the scenes where you're kind of like, at least me, I was kind of more scared of Henry than I was of Otis because you saw Otis like kind of fumbling and being just like a fucking doofus about stuff. And Henry's like, he's almost like Henry's protege, whereas Henry is like the Darth Vader of killing people kind of thing. Like he just does it completely, almost without effort or without like emotion. And so like, you never really see, I mean, you do, but you don't see him like snap on people and be emotional. It's just like they're dead.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think the scene where they're in the house and they're killing the husband, wife, and then the kid walks in. I think that's a good example of what you're saying right now, too, is because it's almost like he's teaching Otis how to do this thing. And then but when push comes to shove, Henry knows how to get this done quick. And if anything comes up, he fucking is able to do it without. It was seamless.
There's no hesitance. There's no hesitancy at all. Which, you know, later when you see the after the fact shots, you know, one in particular near the end of the movie, it almost just like is like a punch in the chest, you know, because it doesn't see, you don't see the escalation. You just see, oh, that person's dead now. You know?
Yeah. Again, speak to more to the differences between their characters is like, you know, Henry does it just out of like partly out of necessity, as it's just a thing he does. That's how he comes, it seems.
Yeah. You know? It's basically his equivalent. Yeah. It's almost like how he, you know, it's like his equivalent of like sexual release is just killing people.
Because the majority of the time he's doing it, it is like prostitutes and women.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if it's also just him being denied something, you know, as when he takes Otis to go get the TV, you know, they're being denied the TV. And then just because that guy was rude to him, Henry said, well, you gots to go. And,
it's almost like a No Country for Old Men type of thing a little bit. It has that similar feel where like you don't always see Anton Chigurh or whatever his name is. You don't always see him kill people, but you see the after effects, or you see a situation where you're like, it's maybe ambiguous, but it's definitely meant to imply that that person was dead for a fairly trivial reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, I think you get that from like the opening when you see the couple that's been shot in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Like, what could have they have done?
Yeah. You know? They might have been like accused him of stealing something or something. You know what I mean? And he just killed them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's also why later in the film, when he goes to get smokes, like you automatically assume the person behind that counter is going to be dead by the end of the scene. Right. But he's not. He lets him go. So, which is the film has this weird way of like, first it kind of humanizes and pours sympathy towards Otis. But then as the film goes on, because Henry unlocks him and basically just unleashes a wild dog, Otis is, he was always going to do fucked up things. It's just Henry gave him permission to kill. And then now that he's killing,
to do it a little more like cunningly.
Right.
I will comment kind of similar to the whole store situation just there. The when he's getting smokes, when he saw the woman with the dog, you're definitely like, oh, he's gonna follow her and kill her.
You think
is that though the same? That was not the same person as like the family that got killed, because that was on my. I just made the connection. I didn't think so.
No, that was so much later. No.
Well, no.
Yeah, that was an older woman.
Did he come back? Yeah, and that's what I thought. I was like, oh, that would have been worked better if that was the connection, though. I think I would have.
No. The point of that was to start to make you think Henry was turning over a new leaf.
Like because he was trying not to kill.
Yeah,
he was trying to control himself. Yeah,
because he didn't hurt the guy at the stand. He didn't hurt the woman. He didn't hurt the dog. I don't know
if turning over a new leaf would be the right term, but even just allowing that he had the control over who and what and why he was killing.
Right. And that's how it's trying to make you sympathize with him, because also he starts having feelings for Becky, and you think it's Becky.
Fucking Hollywood.
Yeah, you think it's Becky is turning him. So, but that's the switch they pull on you, is because Otis becomes this wild dog. And like you were saying before, like the majority of the brutality you see from Henry is also when Otis is around. You hardly see Henry commit acts of brutality. So it's like they stab and kill the TV guy together. They, they annihilate the family together. And it's when Henry gives Otis the gun, but Henry's just standing off to the side when Otis shoots that guy.
Yeah.
So like, you hardly see the brutality from Henry until it's Otis who, attacks his sister Becky. And then that's when, Becky, you think Becky saves Henry. But then, Henry just stabs Otis and kills him outright. And then it's that switch again that just like, it's a deliberate, doesn't take much thought at all for Henry, and he immediately drags Otis to the bathtub and starts dismembering him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which again, I think I don't love knowing the story, or like knowing enough of the story that like I hate bringing all the drama into it. Like I think it's an interesting enough story on its own to not bring like the Hollywood bullshit of like, oh, we need to have a love interest. We need to have the idea of someone wanting to change. We need to have like, oh, there's drama because like, oh no, instinct at the end of the day is always going to win. Like, I think that like for me personally, I think if I'm looking at this just objectively as a movie, it's fine. But like knowing the story, I'm kind of mad that they like veered so far off, because I think a story about Henry could have been played in so many different ways because he was a fucking character.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're missing. I think you're missing the point of the ending, though. The point of the ending is to be the anti-Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, well, no. I'm talking specifically just about the story that they tried to tell, though. Like,
yeah, they're trying to trick you. They're trying to trick you, Meg. They want you to believe.
Color me tricked.
They want you to believe.
Just talk through, because I must have not.
Okay, well, give me a second to talk through.
Whoa, let's not be defensive now.
So they're trying to trick you. They're trying to make you believe that Henry is falling in love with Becky, and they want you to believe that he's turning over a new leaf. But the ending of the film is that he coldly and callously kills Becky without a second thought and just goes on his way. Like he stuffs her in the same suitcase he stuffed Otis in. That tells you exactly what level he believes they're both on, and just
we're not on the same level here of what I'm talking about versus what you're talking about. Like I get what you're saying with what like that. I do get that, but what I'm saying with like just literally the film being in the movie of like just the way like I get like it just
but it strays from the real story.
It just strays so far like that this is just a Hollywood film at the end of the day telling a story and like using whatever they can to get, whether we're talking at the end of the day with what you're saying being anti-Hollywood or whatever, or just at the end of the day that he's a killer.
Yeah.
Either way is what I'm saying is specifically is that I think the story alone of Henry Lee Lucas is interesting enough that like this movie just was, I don't know, so far away from that, you know, that
the only problem for me with that is I can't imagine a scenario where they could have made an interesting, sensical story out of Henry Lee Lucas's real life, because one, his life was anticlimactic. Like ultimately he had all this crazy, you know, obviously he was this murderous psychopath piece of shit, but then he just died of prison of like a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that like ultimately there was really, it's not like you could have, you know, had closure and justice in that. Here's
how this movie could have made sense. Let me just throw this out there. We'll like fan film this one. Is this whole movie could have totally made sense is if they started and ended with the idea that he was in prison and this is just one of the stories that he told because he was a compulsive liar.
But then
that
it almost
would have
like
brought it all together.
See, I feel like that almost gives credence to his weird ego. You know what I mean? Because like the other angle that you have to consider when we are telling a story about a real life piece of shit killer who victimized, you know, potentially hundreds of people in his life is you have to kind of skirt that line between making them scary and making it an effective movie and an effective character and not glorifying him or pushing that killer's agenda forward. And when this movie was made, Henry Lee Lucas was still alive. And you can't profit off of your crimes or anything like that, but he was still alive. And to take one of his stories where he was, you know, this cold-blooded, you know, stealthy, conniving psychopath and put it into the mix makes it like, no, he was just a psycho that lived at the right time in the right place where he could hide in plain sight. He wasn't special. He wasn't smart. He wasn't cunning. He was just a stupid animal that acted with just enough randomness in just, you know, under the guise of just enough anonymity in the right place at the right time. So like, yeah, also, undoubtedly, I think you alluded to it, there was a lot that went into it that was budgetary restrictions. You know what I mean? Like they're obviously going to shoot it in Chicago because that's where they're at. You know what I mean? They're not going to shoot on location in, you know, 80 miles outside Tallahassee or some shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think
what I guess I find myself just curious about, even with everything you just said, though, because that all like obviously all makes sense, is just like, what was the goal and the point of doing a film like this when like they're not trying to talk, even if they're trying to point out how ridiculous and like that he was after he got caught, like he literally was just lying over and over and over again. So like when I see this movie, I'm just like, was this just an exaggeration of a story that he told that then they were playing off of, or like what? I guess what was the goal of doing a film that was so far away from the truth?
No,
you know
I think it was a ripped from the headline thing. It was exploitation filmmaking. It was ripped from the headline. This guy, you know, when they made this, they probably filmed it in 84, 85. He was just been arrested a couple years before that, and it was all over the headlines. It was a big national story. So I think he said, hey, if I'm going to make a movie about a serial killer, we should strike while the iron's hot here and do it about this guy, and we'll get some people, you know, we'll get some butts in the seats. But ultimately, you know, there was a lot. It got really hammered by the MPAA, and it ended up getting slapped with this was before NC-17. So did it get an X rating? It got hit with an
X. Yeah, it got hit with an X. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like generally the point of the film is like just to make a scary film out of like the banality of it. Mm-hmm. Like this isn't a supernatural killer. This is somebody who is like he could come to your door at any moment.
Yeah, poo brain moron can show up at your door and kill you at any point.
Yeah. Yeah, two dummies can show up and just end your life. And like that's something I believe like last podcast on the left makes fun of all the time.
Yeah.
Of just like, you know, your life could be ended by some idiot who just, you know, decides. You know, so like that's more of the point of the film. And then the reason why they changed so much is again because they're not trying to glorify Henry, and you know, even though they still use the names Henry, Otis, and Becky, they're trying to divorce a lot of it from the actual story. They're trying to tell their own story of the way things, you know, went. So it's not, you know, I think holding on to the official Henry Lee Lucas story is not worth it. It's just kind of a loose framework.
Sure.
You know,
yeah, and that's why it just goes back to that point about it being just like Hollywood for selling a story. But
yeah, it's like the Texarkana murders being the quote unquote inspiration behind every slasher, including Steve's movie including your movie we're going to talk about, where it really there was no Leatherface involved in the Texarkana murders, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's quote unquote loosely based on it, and one of the first things they say is like they marketed Texas Chainsaw as a movie that was based on true events.
Because it was also based on Ed Gein.
Yeah.
It was an amalgamation of Texarkana murders, Ed Gein, a bunch of different stuff. But they wanted to be able to say this is based on real things, you know?
We'll get to it, guys. Don't go at too far.
My point is glass houses.
No.
Glass houses.
I will not
very
say
much
that.
Glass houses.
I don't think so.
And then you're being critical of this being like a Hollywood film, and it wasn't. It was, you know, a very much independent film, and this isn't like the first time that this has been done either, because like you have a history of these kind of films with In Cold Blood and Helter Skelter. Like both of them were made, you know.
I'm using probably
adaptations.
The improper terms, and I'm using specifically like this Hollywood term of like, how will this sell? Whether we're talking independent or something that is a big budget, i.e. kind of like whatever beer Brian's drinking over there. Good example of that same idea.
This is a beer. You're talking about movies.
Talking about movies.
I'm just being an asshole. I thought we were talking about movies. This is a beer.
You guys make a lot of movies though over at Slashbox.
We do sometimes.
I just think you're getting hung up on like the way they changed the stories, because like, so the real life Becky was a 12-year-old girl in Florida. Who absolutely was like sexually assaulted by Henry Lee Lucas.
Whereas didn't they like run away together and stuff too? Like, yeah. So whereas what you see in the film is like his one vulnerable spot is a woman who willingly and voluntarily you kind of gives herself to Henry and like shows interest in Henry, and like they have a scene where she is kind of relating a similar story to his upbringing, where her father was abusive to her the same way that Henry's mother was abusive to him. And like you see they're trying to, you know, trick you with a connection that actually isn't there. So I think it's just a storytelling element to make the film interesting, because it's not as interesting in real life, like Brian said. Like the real life story is both too muddy because Lucas was a habitual liar, which they actually do. I just want to overshadow
the things I already said though, and I don't want to repeat myself of like how this could be just as low budget and an interesting film in essence. Versus, I
don't think it is though. I don't think it would be. No, I think it would be too procedural, much like the Helter Skelter movie, which is 3 hours and too long.
If they had cut out, or they put like 5 minutes on either side of like this weird interview with someone, quote unquote, in a prison, whatever kind of scene they want to set up, is the only thing I think that could have been made this movie a little bit more effective for me personally. And I get what you're saying. Like, if I look at this just as a dramatic just film and don't have any understanding or knowledge or background of who Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole are, like, it is an interesting film. I can relate to and understand the idea of like time and place, where in the 80s that like all the imagery would be insanely shocking. That would have been really, really effective. And I can look at it like that. And I can, if I'm watching it now as like movies that we see now, and how like I think horror has to kind of go around with like how we see slasher films or serial killer films, like it may not be the same. Like you'd probably do it a little differently. But so that's why I'm like trying not to like be misunderstood here, that like I understand all the intricacies as a film. It's fine. I think when we're talking about real people and like real stories that have existed, that there's like ways that it could be done where it would be like, I would be so invested in this film. And like literally because knowing even, I mean, I don't know if when this movie came out, if they understood how big of a liar Henry Lee Lucas was.
It's in the film.
Right, because they allude that he's swapping stories. Yes, I hear that.
Yeah, he swaps his stories about how he killed his mother 3 times within the film.
Sure. So then they knew. So which even adds more to my point of like, this would be an amazing film if they just were kind of playing off that, and it was very clear and evident by like making it a dramatization of one of the stories that he told. That's all I'm saying. That I'm not like overlooking or like trying to overplay this. Like I'm just saying, like I feel like I'd be repeating myself.
I just think you're marrying this to the actual real life incident too much, just because they do use similar names.
But it is a real life story. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a real life story.
We talk about like Texas Chainsaw, where when they were selling the film, they were trying to make it like it was a real thing, because it's kind of like Blair Witch, like, you know, that got people like, oh my God, this is a real story. What the fuck? That like, versus where those ended up, they're not a real thing, where this was like a real story that actually existed. These people existed in real life. That's where I think like the difference is, and why I have this perspective on it. That's all. Like, and I'm not, so
I think if you did the story that you were saying, it's like, I'm not saying that wouldn't be good. It's just, it's a totally different type of movie too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this, it's just not, I mean, you're asking, you're basically saying that you would prefer the movie to be an entirely fundamentally different movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think like adding a scene of it being like, this is a story that's being told to people. Like I said, a scene where they're starting an interview would have changed this whole movie.
That essentially puts it in the realm of those films that end with "it was all a dream" or "he was a ghost the whole time," because it invalidates what you're just.
You already know that the story existed. I mean, it still would be backed up by things that actually happened, and that's the other part of it, is that there are actually murders that happened that will, and this is why like his story was so interesting, was like there was some truth to some of it, versus like it being an exaggeration on other things so that he could like get more attention or like extend his like sentence, you know, or like keep things going like that. That's all I'm saying. Like it's not a dream within a dream, because this was actually a real situation.
No, but I think what he's saying is, if it's a story, if it was bookended by Henry telling a story and it was all told from his perspective, it would be kind of like retconning history a little bit, it
invalidates what the audience is seeing as well, because then it becomes, oh well, then what I just saw was more than likely a lie. But
they don't have to leave it that way. They like
it does though, because then you have to, like, watching this film on its own, you can just take things at face value, and knowing that it's not a direct one-to-one translation of what actually happened in history, you can just take the story, you can just take the film at face value
exactly.
that they borrowed names.
I understand that. That's the part that I get.
But when you bookend it with it being told from Lucas's perspective, it then becomes, it was all a dream, or is this a lie? What it
which is an interesting film to me. Like, is this such an interesting film for me? I mean, honestly,
it just doesn't have the same impact.
Well, you're also, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing where you're thinking of it just from your perspective as someone who knows the story really well. And you have to understand that this is quite an assumption on my part, but I got to assume that less than half of the people who came to watch this movie actually knew the ins and outs of the story of Henry Lee Lucas.
But the interesting part is they probably would have either known who he is, and if they saw his name in the headlines, they might have tried to associate that might have actually happened. Like that's what I'm saying here is that
you're taking exception with the fact that they took liberties with a true story.
The only thing I'm saying is that maybe that's part of it, is that I just I think this could have been a more interesting, and I don't want to my perception of being this is not my favorite movie because this was a real situation that happened, versus if I look at it as objectively just as a film, it's fine. It does a purpose. But anyone who is into horror, especially so if we're talking about now or even then, they're going to find out who that person is, and either they're going to believe what they saw in the film, or they're going to know that it just was not actually true, and they're not even going to know what was true or what wasn't true. And then they find out that he was a liar, and then he lied about a lot of the people that he killed. And that's what I'm saying is they could have even gotten ahead of that and had a more interesting story by saying that oh, we can't really believe anything he says. It still would have hit the point that anyone with a low IQ could have killed anyone, because the murders in there, a lot of them could have been very well true. Yeah.
I think we're
going too dive deep in how I'm saying, and whether or not you guys understand my perspective on it is different.
Too much dynamic. I think you're giving both the audience and the director too much credit, because I don't necessarily know
credit.
that
I think I'm just being very subjective on what I would have preferred and I thought would have been more interesting for the film.
No, I'm just saying if the audience would have is going to go out, 1, know who he is, 2, care what happened to him, 3, look up anything about him and formulate any type of opinions or conclusions based on the information that they had, especially with before the internet, seems highly unlikely. I think if you would have bookended it in a way where you knew it was a story coming out of the mouth of Henry Lee Lucas from the beginning, then it cuts the stakes way down for me, because you kind of already know he's going to survive. So it's kind of like a prequel type of problem. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where if you know the story is coming from the future from a main character, then you know that person survived. You know what I mean? And if these characters can just exist in relative,
but imagine what you just anonymity. Said though, and what we learned about his character. Of he is a survivalist. He will do anything, and it was almost very primitive, and you know what I mean, or very primal in how he acts.
Sure,
it would have totally made sense.
There still could have been a scene where Becky killed him in the end.
Yeah, Becky could have shot him in the head. Otis could have killed him. But if Henry was telling the story, that scene, which was kind of the climactic scene of the movie, or one of the 2 climactic scenes of the movie, if we knew that this whole story was being told from the perspective of Henry, then it takes a lot of the sting out of that scene.
Mm-hmm. Especially the end.
But it also would account for the changes that they made to the story of how he saw the situation and how he was always ahead of it. But
he's not going to. He's not
fan filming this. I feel
well, you're fan filming it because you're getting hung up.
The audience is going to get very frustrated that we are beating a dead horse right now. And all I'm saying is that this movie could have been interesting in a different way, and that's why it's not my favorite film of how they could have done it. That's it, guys. But you guys can have different opinion all you want.
All we're saying is your opinion of how you said to bring it to life doesn't make any sense. It's bad. It's a bad idea.
We can take tables. Someone can message me or tell me that I do make sense or I don't.
Oh, here goes Meg to her following again. Tell me I'm right and tell me I'm good.
I'm not saying you don't make sense. I'm saying your idea would have not, what you're suggesting would have made it better would have made it way worse. That's what I think.
I'd be curious.
Yeah. That's
I feel
my
like
opinion.
you guys haven't sold me on how it would actually be worse, because I still think it would be.
We haven't sold you because it's your belief, Meg.
You're talking to me like I can't change my mind on things.
No, listen.
Isn't this whole podcast about we're trying to convince the other person that another film is better than the other film? Hey, guys, how many times have we changed our minds on films? You guys just haven't sold it to me yet. Okay. So let's say this one's on you.
None of the story would have been. It wouldn't have been exciting if you knew he survived.
Yeah. It wouldn't be exciting if you knew he survived, and then it would lessen the impact.
And that he was in jail.
But he is a real character, depending on whether or
it doesn't matter.
Whether or not you knew him
that's
then
the
or
biggest problem.
now. You
Meg,
know he
your
survived
biggest
for a period
problem,
of time.
Meg, your biggest problem is you won't divorce this from the real life.
Yeah,
like
this is
you're
just
somehow,
yeah.
You're somehow
but that
willing
me
to divorce
as a
Texas.
watcher, and I know this is a story. Why
Okay,
do I
but
have to divorce the two?
Because
one's
real and one's not.
How many serial killer films do we see now that are much closer to the actual situation of like whether they're playing from headlines or the flying?
I still don't believe those.
Fine. Fine, but I'm saying there has been many better examples of something like this, and with this being so far removed from anything close to what's actually happened.
It wasn't meant to be a 1-to-1. It wasn't
That's fine.
meant to.
That's
it was
fine.
meant
That's
to
what
divorce.
I
it's
understand.
much more
what
in
I'm
the
saying
line
is
of Texas
I don't
Chainsaw.
like that they decided to do that.
Well, then be mad about that. But that's the thing
That's
that
fine.
we can't change you on because you won't let go of.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like you
that.
guys are like. He's a real character. Like, that's the only thing is like whether if these were like derived from real characters in a completely different story and not using the same names and not using similar situations that happen, I might be able to divorce it.
But I'm saying
separately. You know what I mean? Or more.
Leatherface is a very close to what like he is heavily influenced by.
Yeah, we know
Ed
that.
Gein.
Yeah,
Ed Gein.
These are things we understand and know.
But Ed Gein lived in Wisconsin, and I think it's bullshit that they moved it to Texas.
Yeah, and I think it's
they would
crazy
have done it in Wisconsin. Like Ed Gein didn't even get to wear his cool hat he has on in all those
right
pictures.
Now, and I know everyone listening is gonna fucking understand what you're doing now.
It's so stupid that Texas Chainsaw doesn't start with with Leatherface in jail telling his story.
I love how right I am right now.
You really are,
you
though.
Guys,
that's the thing.
You guys just sound so ridiculous with like trying to bring
character.
That's fine because it's my opinion on what I think about the movie.
It's
That's what
such
opinions
a bad
are.
opinion, though.
That's great. I'm glad you think so. Thank you, Brian, for telling me a bad opinion about something.
Bad opinion.
Let's move on. I just have a few thoughts, and I'll wrap up this, and then we'll move on to the next film. Just want to point out Michael Rooker is amazing in this film. Even though Tom
is.
Tom
hey, can I say that he is amazing in this film.
Great, thank you.
Okay now with that opinion?
Yeah, thank you.
Is that opinion now invalidated, guys?
No, I wish they would have came up at the beginning of the movie and they did a quick little cut scene that said Michael Rooker going, "I'm not the real Henry Lee Lucas." Like that would have made me feel better personally.
So
Megan's giving me just a death stare right now.
Yeah. So Michael Rooker's amazing, and then the soundtrack's amazing. Like it's pretty tight. It's
hey guys, I have an opinion on that. It is pretty solid.
Yeah, great.
So
I'm glad
far,
you agree.
two for you're now
You're
getting a streak going.
Guys,
hitting them out the park.
Hey, everyone listening to this, the guys only like my opinions when I agree with them.
No, not at all.
Let's be
sometimes
real.
I agree. Sometimes I agree with your opinion. This instance, I do not.
That's fine. Cool. We're different people.
Yeah,
but I believe this is like kind of
different
a
interests in serial killers.
I believe this situation is kind of a Charles Band situation because John McNaughton is the director and I believe the composer is Richard McNaughton. So I believe it's brothers tag teaming, but the soundtrack.
It's Chuck and what's Chuck's brother's name? Chuck Norris's brother's name?
Oh, Chuck. Oh, I can't.
I'm
not remembering that. Movie. Yeah, I'm not remembering that.
Patty Norris. I don't know.
Patty Norris. Jake Norris. But a film that like people should check out that I think borrows now that I think that damn it, Meg, you just threw me off my train of thought. I think borrows a lot. Now that I've like seen the two relatively together, check out the film In the Company of Men. It's a film from '97 with Aaron Eckhart, and it is very similar to this film, especially in soundtrack and ending. Just the way things play out. But In the Company of Men is not about serial killers. But just, again, in soundtrack and ending, just the way, like, things are, like, animal noises are incorporated to, like, people just, when Henry's just walking around, you just hear, like, that cacophony of a zoo fire in his head. Like, as he's getting ready to fucking kill somebody and, exterminate people. And you get a lot of the same things in this film, In the Company of Men. So check that out as well. But
yeah, my whole take on this movie is it's a pretty effective movie, in my opinion, especially for a movie that doesn't show a lot. I mean, there's one scene which we didn't really get too deep into, which is the scene where, Henry and Otis go into the house and murder this family. It's like fucking brutal to watch, because it's also in like a found shot. Like that specific scene is shot. You're seeing it through like a found footage kind of lens, which is really fucking creepy. But I think the other thing.
Can I add to that though? Is like what I loved even was like after the fact that I thought it aided in like how fucked up they were. Was that they would watch it afterwards. I thought
they're
that
sitting
was a
there
good,
on the couch. Yeah,
there was a good like one after the other, and then even just playing into Otis's character of like him wanting to be like, I want to watch it again. It's something's
it's
really
also
just
like
like
this
fucked up
juvenile. There's something about this like juvenile, like toxic masculinity / like almost like bro-y peer pressure type of culture between the two of them, where like you can tell that they're like, and not that you can tell that they're affected, but it's just kind of like, I don't know that if before they watched it, Otis would have been like, yeah, I can't wait to watch that. But like, he feels like he has to keep up with Henry, you know what I mean? And like watch this and do fucked up stuff.
Think about the scene where they, where Otis is like, I just need to fucking like kill someone. I just need to like do something. And then he takes them out and they pretend like they're broken down. It was, this might sound super silly. It almost reminds me of like a weird PSA where you see like the one older kid who's just like, here, have a joint. And then like they just do it and they smoke it. And they're like, now their life's like changed. That's what kind of reminds me of a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
or it reminds me of like that kid in freshman year of college who's just like really into the idea of drinking in college. And he's just like, dude, I want to get fucked up. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, cool, man. He's just like that. I don't know. That's just like.
Well, I mean, you even see that parallel in the film because like before they kill before Henry kills the prostitutes in the car, he said he tells Otis, he's like, hey, let's go get a beer. And then let's go get a beer turns into let's go kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like it's the same kind of mechanism of like, hey, let's go out and have a time.
Yeah, it's going to devolve into something out of control.
It makes you think that anytime he says something, because this is why that scene where we talk about like when he goes to get the cigarettes and he's in that shop is like really effective for making you be like, oh, hey, he's going to kill, because we see that scene. And I think the prostitute scene happens before this, where he then wants to go out and grab cigarettes. You're like, oh, this cue of like, I need to go out is the same meaning of I need to go kill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's anytime they feel some sort of distress, like from another force. So like they go out and kill because Otis is distressed by the high school kid that he tried to molest for drugs. So he's distressed by that. So they go out and kill. Henry is distressed by Becky, like coming on to him, and like the sex that they almost had, like, how close he almost got to forming a connection with somebody. So he's distressed by that. He doesn't know how to handle himself. So like, he goes out to get cigarettes. We think, quote, cigarettes, and he thinks he's out to kill, to just release that energy.
The moment you hear that, though, you're cued as the watcher that he's going to go kill someone.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think the most effective part, and the more I think about it, God, this movie reminds me so much of No Country for Old Men, actually, the more I think about it. The scene at the end, which you already mentioned, about how, it looks like him and Becky are going to run away together, and he just kind of gets quiet. And you're like, God damn, he's planning something. And Becky's kind of like, even when they're in the hotel room together, there's a hesitancy where Becky's like kind of starting to trust him, but she's nervous about the way he's acting, because he's acting kind of cold. Not that he doesn't normally act cold, but you can tell she's starting to worry that maybe her life's in danger, or maybe and anyway, so then whenever he pulls over, it's just, it's that night in the hotel, and then it's morning, and you see Henry come out, and he's by himself, and he's got the suitcase.
Well, he doesn't have the suitcase.
No, he doesn't have suitcase. Suitcase is in the trunk, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of a double twist. It makes you think, one, Henry just leaves her.
Yeah.
But then he dumps the suitcase and you go, shit.
Yeah, because then you're like, but it's one of those scenes, right? Yes, you don't see the suitcase. You just see Henry come up by himself, and you're like, did he kill her? Did he leave without her? But the reason, I guess I remember just thinking he killed her because he doesn't sneak out of the room. Mm-mm. He's like, bebop, boop, popping out of the room. Yeah, he's just like casually leaving the place, and she's not there, and you're like, fuck. But then you're like, well, are they meaning, like, you kind of are trying to decipher. It's like when you see something that's really like distressing on screen, like imagery, and your brain is trying to make it seem not as bad as it is for a quick second.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, fuck that. And it makes it like 10 times worse. It's like that, but more of a storytelling device where you're like, oh, she's not dead. Is she? She's not there. But then, and then you see the suitcase and you're like, oh, fuck, that is exactly what happened, Mm-hmm. And it was really effective in that way. But if I never saw this movie again, I wouldn't mind. Like, it's not a fun movie. It's not a pleasant movie. No. It is a distressing, depressing, brutal movie.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever catch the second one?
Oh, that's trash. Don't watch that.
I did.
Is it trash? I just saw that there was a second one.
Yeah, it's trash.
I feel like it's like very loosely, and I don't think it has any of the people involved in it. Like Michael Rooker or anything isn't on there.
No, but it's not the same
it's like
director.
He never got caught. Almost seems like.
I put this movie in the same, like, and I don't feel the same way about Maniac, but like the original Joe Spinell Maniac. Mm-hmm. I actually do like that movie and can watch it multiple times. But what's another movie that's in that category? Even like, no, that's not a good example either. I'm trying to think. There's like certain movies where like they're really effective, but like, God, I don't know. I don't want to watch. Martyrs is a good example. Yeah. Martyrs is a good one where it's just like, holy shit, that was like an emotional, it was an experience and you're glad you had it, but you're not I'm not gonna pop it on a Thursday night,
And again, the film I mentioned earlier, In the Company of Men, is along the same line. Nobody dies in it, but it's just emotionally hard to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's effective. It's a good film, but you don't want to come back to it. You watch it and you go, great. Ow.
Yeah.
People are terrible.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Any final thoughts on that movie?
No, I just think they did all of this for, $110,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. I wonder where the most, because it's like, Michael Rooker was unknown at this time, right?
Yeah, I mean, he still probably commanded the most amount of pay of everybody, but yeah, everybody is more or less unknown. You see, there's a woman credited 3 times in the film, Mary Demas. She's credited 3 times because she plays two different prostitutes and one of the bodies in the early tableaus. And like the car apparently belonged to somebody on the crew, and so they just like when they're filming the bum fights, apparently that's also members of the crew doing bum fights. So like they saved money all over the place.
All right, let's get into Meg. You're going next, right?
All right, guys. It's time to talk about the best of the three movies.
Okay.
No, we just want to shut up.
Do you want to dive back into that? Anywho, we might touch on that a little bit because unlike your film that was based on very specific characters named the same thing, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, while also based on real people, or derived, we should say, story influenced, but not directly related to certain serial killers. We're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a classic story of a bunch of teens trying to go on a really fun road trip
in their van,
who just happen to meet a deranged family.
Yeah.
Get fucking killed. That's the end of it. That's actually the end of my story.
That's kind of the whole story.
That is pretty much the whole story. Produced and directed by, do you say his name Toby? I'm gonna think that's like not
Toby Hooper. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say Toby Hooper, which I actually, Life Force, guys. You remember that fun ditty?
Yeah, Life Force is great.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Meg, can you give us the alternate pronunciation you were going to go with though?
I would say Tobe.
Okay.
Like if I'm
Straight
going
up
very
Tobe.
literal, Tobe.
It's like Job from Arrested Development.
The Book of Tobe from the Bible.
Well, my sister's name is Tobin, so I was like Tobe. I call her Tobe from time to time.
Probably his close friends may have called him Tobe.
Anywho,
R.I.P.
Any Hoopers. Yeah, so where to start, guys? Okay. This is such a classic film. I think so many people know the plot synopsis, and it's, I think, been really influential in a lot of other films that to go into all the details would be silly. However, I do like Toby Hooper, like a little bit of background if anyone isn't familiar. And I was really excited to read even more that he did work with a lot of the Stephen King film or adaptations and stuff like Salem's Lot, and there was another one that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but The Mangler, which was pretty fucking sick.
Yeah, he was he technically directed Poltergeist, but then the story is that it was almost a co-directing type situation with one Mr. Steven Spielberg, but yeah, a genre, and under, I don't want to say underappreciated because he does get a lot of love. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I always feel like Toby Hooper gets shortchanged a little bit. You know what I mean? Texas Chainsaw, everyone's like, oh, Texas Chainsaw, it's a masterpiece of the genre, all that stuff. But then anytime you talk about another movie that's a Toby Hooper flick, they're like, oh yeah, that's a great, but it could have been this, or oh, but you heard Steven Spielberg actually direct. Right. I feel like he just gets a lot of shade for some reason. Yeah,
he gets undercut a lot, and I think it's also just because after the 90s, that he didn't. I don't know. He didn't have much that really grabbed anybody. He never got. Yeah. I think it's the Toolbox Murder. Yeah. The Toolbox Murders is what put him back into kind of the zeitgeist of, but other than that, he just never had that real big resurgence. The same way George Romero struggled to get his big resurgence. Mm-hmm. He got Land of the Dead, and then he made those other of the Dead films afterwards. Mm-hmm. But it was never he was never given the big projects. It wasn't the same trajectory that a Sam Raimi took, right, where he did a bunch of the low budget stuff, or Peter Jackson, where they do a bunch of the low budget stuff and then they get to graduate to the big IPs.
Yeah. So you always got the idea that he was given a couple of chances, with Poltergeist and stuff, and then he needed bailed out or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or Life Force, which probably bankrupted Canon Films or whatever.
God damn it! I love that movie so much.
Oh, it's awesome!
And all they had to do was call it Big Titty Space Vampires. That's all they had to do.
Getting Life Force might be worth sacrificing Toby Hooper directing a Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
So
Life Force is one of the fucking all-time most underrated just films.
Did we just cover that one, or was that on to remind me, did we have that in a Showdown?
No, we covered it.
We just covered it. Okay.
I think we did it in a mini-sode or something.
We did it as a punishment film.
Oh, okay. Which was a not so punishment film. No,
I think I picked it as a punishment film.
I think that was
either you picked it or I picked it as just like, hey, let's just do Life Force. As, you know,
for sure, because it's fun. So just reading a little of the background of this, Toby, like when he was in writing it, combined elements, like this is just a direct quote from like what was described about the film, was like he combined elements from the story about he wrote about like being in isolation and darkness, but also with like inspiration from like the graphic news that was being covered. And we see that a lot too, like in the beginning when when they're in the van and they're driving and you hear in the background, which I thought like it stuck out to a lot to me. So what I liked about this film too, that I think they did without being so in your face about it, was like a lot of the graphic images just struck you in a way that was just like you didn't really need to know that all this stuff was going on, or even when they're talking about like butchering animals and stuff like that, they were never like in your face about it or so direct, but it was felt that you felt like there was just so much tension and a lot of like drama going on around this story. And that everyone kind of felt oblivious, or they didn't really necessarily, they almost felt like it was like real life. And I mean, we see it even now today. And I think like this going on, you know, what we're just past Vietnam, or like, and so on and so forth. Like there's a lot of things happening in real life that like you're becoming so numb to almost. Mm-hmm. So what I think was almost kind of translated into this film a little bit.
Yeah. This movie like just has this very grimy feel to it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's part of it is the, you know, shot on location in the middle of goddamn nowhere, Texas in the summertime. It was like brutally hot out. Everyone's sweaty. Everyone looks like they stink. You know what I mean? And it's just grimy and dirty and sweaty. And like, you know, this is, you know, one of the most famous horror movies of all time. So people probably heard a lot of this, but like the shooting was apparently brutal. Mm-hmm. Just because it was so hot and they were operating, you know, on this shoestring budget. So everyone had to like, there wasn't a ton of crew. It just was like all hands on deck, dirty, grimy, sweaty, fucking almost guerrilla filmmaking in a way. Mm.
Yeah, like especially like filming in the van, like you know, I think like the van didn't have AC or whatever, and so it was just. And
it's not like you can shoot with the windows down. Like it's just that shit had to be.
It's a cool element though that I'm sure they either recognize or did because they're like, I mean, they probably did very purposefully that like. It's like almost being submerged into the environment. You're going to get a little bit more of a natural reaction because they probably were just insanely tired and hot and just even annoyed, or then having with why am I forgetting the character's name right off the top of my head? The brother, so Nubbins. So when he gets picked up and just like being so kind of like scared and annoyed at, like with his presence from the get-go. It's like those type of things can just be dialed up when the environment you're like existing in is just, you know, a little bit.
It's already a high stress environment. Exactly. And then you add this fucking weirdo, and also it's like, it's all fun and games until Nubbins gets in the van. And then he just really fucks up the vibe. Like,
yeah. So, and like one of the main things they talk about, like right in the beginning, that seems to be one of the high profile stories going on is that there's like these grave robbings that's happening. And it's Sally and Franklin's grandfather was buried in one of these graveyards, and they wanted to go see him. And that's when they start meeting. And this is where you start getting the feel for the environment, that it doesn't really feel super safe. You know, you have this guy that's like super drunk and he's saying really crazy things, and you're just like, I don't know if I trust what's going on around me. So you stop like trusting the environment that you're in, though they're still like really young and naive, and they're just like going along with it, even though they're like, this is weird. Let's keep going though. And
are you talking about Jim Leahy in the tire?
Yeah. Like it was a very effective scene. In my mind, I'm just like, yeah, I would be like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, what the fuck is happening? So we get to our first scene where they were going to, it was their grandmother's house that was basically abandoned at this point, but they're like, we can go stay here. And everyone just starts exploring, you know, everyone's a horny teenager and they're just like, let's venture off. And what I like is that it almost felt like, I mean, we're 25, 30 minutes in before we meet Leatherface for the first time. But I think it didn't necessarily feel that way because of like, you kind of got these like tense moments along the way that like it allowed a slow build up to the point where we first meet Leatherface.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's just Toby like doing a good cold open without doing a cold open. He does a cold open without including the family, in that he shows you all the dug up bodies.
Yeah.
And just like you get the news story about the bodies dug up, and then just like that iconic shot of like the one sitting on the headstone that's like dripping in the sun.
Yeah.
Like it's so disgusting and so upsetting.
Yeah.
That'll carry you through the next 20 to 30 minutes before you see Leatherface. You're
Exactly.
just like, God, that's so gross.
They're gonna and it also like makes you feel just kind of unsafe as an audience member. Where you're like, oh fuck, they're gonna do some gross shit in this movie.
Right.
But it's weird because they really don't ever do anything more gross than that.
No, not really. And I think that's like one of the good things about it is just like it shows you a lot of frames of like bones, but it's just animal bones.
Yeah.
Or like when Sally has escaped back to the gas station with the barbecue.
Yeah.
And like they're showing you the barbecue and you're not sure what you're looking at. You're looking at meat. But at this point you've come to suspect like what is the meat in there. And most people just like, if you're not a butcher, you can't identify it.
Sure.
Right.
You can just kind of guess.
But imagine too, it's like that scene right after that was right before they picked up Nubbins and they're getting the smell of the slaughterhouse. And like you're then making associations in your brain about like something that we're not used to seeing, but we're so used to consuming. And that's why I think this movie can carry on the generations and why it can still stick with people in a lot of ways is like maybe even more so now because we're like definitely focused on like what we're consuming and what we're doing. So even like time and place then those things are really effective. But I think now it's like slaughterhouses are even more disgusting and we know how fucked up they are and we understand those things. So like to now make even more associations with like the imagery to what we're hearing and what we're seeing and what we're being told as far as like what smell is and whether or not you've smelled what like rotting flesh or like, you know, whatever, or like a slaughterhouse smells like, you kind of get an idea of what that is.
Just a quick question, because I know both of you have traveled on the West Coast as well at some point, but like have either of you driven past that like infamous cattle farm that's like up 5 between Los Angeles and San Francisco?
Yeah, I've heard of that for like miles and miles. You're supposed to be able to smell it. And I don't know if somebody's told me about it. I do not remember.
I'll tell you about it. I have.
Oh,
it is disgusting. It is one of the worst things I've ever smelled. Yeah. And it's just like I can't not think of that. You know, now when somebody describes like slaughterhouse smells, like it's not even really you're smelling a slaughterhouse. It's just the mass amount of cows standing in the mud, shitting on top of each other. Just like it is horrific to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still like it. I still like a Wendy's.
Yeah.
It's never frozen.
Yeah.
Nothing is like
Dave
totally,
Thomas told me.
Yeah.
Like I can't watch any videos. Like I just can't do it. Like I don't want to know about the mass slaughterhouses. Like that kills me a lot. But at the same time, like growing up in like a little bit more of a rural area, like I know some of the smells. I'm like I've been around like a lot of dead animals before. You know, like family doing that and stuff like that. But I can't make the combination, but like so that's what goes on in my head.
Yeah, I feel like we don't smell as many dead skunks anymore. I felt like I smelled more dead skunks in the 90s.
They used to be a big 90s thing. Yeah, I mean, I have shoveled shit out of a pig pen before. I have walked outside with a plastic bucket full of cow testicles, and thrown them on the roof of the fairing house for the birds to eat.
Sick.
And that smells bad too.
Yeah.
Like there is a very distinct smell of like a butcher, like a slaughterhouse, because it's the smell of blood in my mind. It's the smell of like of rotting blood, not necessarily like meat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for whatever reason, it's that smell of like like putrid blood,
oxidizing iron.
Yeah, it's just fucking really gross.
So now that we're less than a half hour in and we're all really disgusted about all of this, what I like to is then when we do meet Leatherface, we meet him hard and fast and everything just starts rolling from there. But what I think they did really great is, so we got a kill first, like really fast. And then we start seeing the imagery of what's going on in the house with that room that's like filled with bones. There's a fucking chicken in a cage, which I don't know why it was there other than it's really disturbing. And I actually was like, let the chicken out. Like, we talk about cage free now, guys. Let's fucking do this. That's just a silly side note. But
I took it as it was his pet, or he was going to do something weird to it.
Yeah. But it still made you feel unsettled. You're like, that this chicken should not be in a bird cage. It's a bird. So him being a dumb redneck, again, I don't want to offend anyone who maybe feels like they identify as a dumb redneck.
Well, if they identify as a dumb redneck, they're not going to get mad at you calling them dumb.
Yeah.
But maybe they just don't want other people calling them dumb. Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe they've been called dumb and they're really not. Anywho.
Yeah.
Only my mama can call me illiterate.
I mean, I can't read, but don't make a big deal out of it. Yeah.
I ain't going to have no liberal podcast call me a dumb hillbilly.
With your goddamn Chinese space balloon watching me jerk off. Ripped from the headlines.
But anywho, so the chicken in the cage bothered me personally, but maybe it was his pet, like you said. But that's not, again, the dumb thing. So I think there's really a lot of great imagery, but I'm glad that like what this movie did effective was we're still dealing with a movie that's an hour and 20 minutes and it's like still effective and like switches gears, I think, really well. So we get like a bunch of the people killed really fast, and then we see like how aggressive and reactive, but also then we get notes back to the slaughterhouse killing, like what Nubbins talks about, like, or even knows Franklin about like how they used to kill animals, and then we meet Leatherface who's killing all these people in the same fucking way as if they're just fucking cattle, being slaughtered. And I think again this is really effective and really awesome. Yeah, I kind of almost want to jump past a lot of the like all the minute killings and then go more so then to the next, I think, major moment. And this will skip a lot of the time that we're dealing with here in when Sally gets captured. So she sees like Franklin gets killed and like all of a sudden she's like freaked out, finds a building. And this is when we meet Drayton Sawyer, who like almost plays like you almost think he's like a cop at first, or like someone who's just like a do-gooder in the neighborhood and just like, oh yeah, come on in, like I'll help you out, but then turns out to be part of this whole family crew of Sawyers and folks that are just going to be murderous people. Beats her down, captures her, takes her back to the house of Leatherface. Can this be called the house of Leatherface?
The house that Leatherface built. They doesn't, and Nubbins marked the car. They don't that always was one of the most creepy things to me.
It was though, but like I still like, so the only thing I'll say is like a weird thing, and maybe you guys can clarify, so maybe it's something I missed, is that he marked the car, but I don't think we really get like a direct connection to it because it all felt like mildly of a chaotic situation. Like they just were in the wrong time, wrong place, and they're getting killed. There wasn't like we marked the car and now we're going to go back to find the car. Unless I missed something. I don't think I did.
I mean, I don't know. I just always took that as like that was what he was doing, and we didn't really see. But they were pulling, they were almost, you think of as these like dumb, inbred, redneck psychopaths, but they are also like kind of pulling the strings of the marionettes here a little bit and, making them end up there. And because they've done this to so many people before, they have it down to a science, which is like, I think one of the really creepy parts.
Yeah. It's a process, and maybe that's something that was inspired by another real life killer or team of killers that like they would mark a car and then come back to it.
I mean, if we're talking about some of the influences, again, I don't know much about these serial killers. Do you actually have evidence like of the
no, I don't have evidence.
Okay.
No, but it sounds
Sure.
like something that highwaymen would do.
Like an urban legend kind of thing.
You know what? I almost, because I don't know if we maybe collectively missed it, is I'm curious if in the grave robbings there was a sign so that if they found the car later on, they would have caught that like symbol somewhere that was just their like little signature. Because I don't think like, so one of the other serial killers that this movie is based off of besides Ed Gein that we already mentioned, which was I think mostly just the Leatherface aspect of it, of like
the grave robbing too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Is like the Elmer Wayne Henley, and then he had other accomplices that was David Owen Brooks, and then also Dean Coral. Dean Coral. So like I don't think those three had like a calling, but they just collectively like captured and raped and murdered like a bunch of teenage boys. So I don't know if there was a calling there, and I don't think there was. But I could see if maybe I missed something in like some of the notes about if like on the radio there was like something on the graves or somewhere there as a signature. But I don't think there was a full connection or a full round circle, because I feel like these people are just kind of so dumb that I don't necessarily think, and especially specifically Drayton Sawyer, the one that was kind of like, he almost felt like he wasn't always involved in the murders, but he was always like helping the family because he's in the family.
Yeah. Well, even he mentions that he's not one for the killing.
Yeah, exactly. That I was going with a point right there. Like they all just seem like they do have a process of when they capture and kill people, but all around, like I don't think they're very smart enough to necessarily like hunt. They don't really seem like necessarily hunters. They seem like, and so
they're like
this situation,
opportunistic. Yeah.
This situation specifically is very opportunistic. It's very chaotic. It clearly shows that it was very unplanned, because Drayton makes that very clear of like, you need to make sure all these people are dead before yada, yada, yada. He almost seems like the smartest of the bunch. So anywho,
he made it out.
Yeah, he made it out.
He's the one who made it out.
We have Sally back at the house, and I think this is always like just a silly scene to me, is where now we get introduced to Grandpa. And one of my favorite, I actually sent part of a video to a friend, but when he's like sucking on the finger because of the blood and somehow invigorates him back, wakes him up, energizes him. I sent that scene because that made me laugh a little bit, because he almost seems like he's dancing. But the scene right after it, and I don't know if there's a connection, but it makes me want to, as like a music fan. Are you guys familiar with the band Deaf Haven?
I'm not.
It's fine. They put out an album probably about a year and a half ago now, and like when right after that it goes to this like moon scene, and it reminds me of their album cover for it. I'll send it to you guys, and I'll be like, yes, that's it.
I thought you were gonna say the album is called like Sucking Fingies or something.
Oh, that would be even better. Just not that
Fingy
macabre.
treats.
Fingy treats. Macabre needs to like make that their next album. Fingy
Yummy
treats.
fingy treats.
Cold snacks. Were these warm snacks then?
Fingy cold snacks. Cold fingy snacks.
Cold fingy snacks.
Did anybody feel, and maybe it's just, I don't know what it is, but like Drayton sounds like David Lynch.
A little bit, like the way he enunciates, kind of. Yeah. I can see that.
He's high pitched, and then
he's also kind of screaming.
Right, he's high pitched and he's yelling, and it just made me think of David Lynch in Twin Peaks when he's being the FBI director
he's
and yelling.
Literally the guy with the things in his ears. Yeah, David Lynch. He also kind of talks like that in real life. He just kind of scream talks.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just felt like at any point Drayton would just go into, if you can
believe it. Oh, he actually does. He's like redneck David Lynch. Yeah.
It's fucking great. What's also great, the scene we just saw, or I think it's right before that, even with the dinner, is just like, I felt like it just made me feel so uncomfortable as we're sitting there. She's screaming bloody murder and everyone's just laughing at her. It was very effective for me because I think it lasted long enough to make it so uncomfortable that you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen now. Like, but
I remember very, very vividly the first time I saw this movie. And I was probably 12 or 13 and maybe even younger. I don't remember exactly, but I remember the first time watching this, and it was on TV. It was on like a cable channel or something. So it was even edited. I don't think too dramatic. They usually don't cut this movie up too much when it's on. But in any case, boy, like it just was the first time I saw just maniacal, just like mayhem. You know what I mean? Like just like sick, demented mayhem on screen.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking like, what the fuck is like, what am I watching right now? Like, and now, fast forward 20 some years later and it's like, not really that. I mean, it's still a very effective scene, but like, obviously,
it's a lot sillier now.
It's an effective scene of chaos simply because like she's screaming and then like Nubbins is laughing and Drayton is yelling at Leatherface and like Leatherface has a lady mask on and it's like, what the fuck is that? Like it is a whole lot of
depravity happening on screen. I remember that was the first time I was just like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah. So right after this scene, Sally is able to, I think this might have been part of the finger sucking scene where she's able, because she has a little bit of a like leverage here, is able to get out, jumps through a window and starts running. Which
one of the greatest scenes in horror history.
Yeah.
The jumping out the window and then the escape.
The chase, the escape. I feel like, again, this is probably what you see, you like remember, like it's like blasted everywhere. Like every time I see a horror movie about, or a horror t-shirt about this movie, like it's like Leatherface wailing his fucking
swinging the chainsaw in the sunset and all that. Or was it sunrise at that point?
It would have been sunrise at that point.
Yeah, it would have been sunrise this morning.
Right. So silly other things that I felt like was really crazy, but I don't know why they decided to do it. Like I liked it, and maybe it showed how fumbly like the whole Sawyer family is with like Leatherface falling and like almost sawing his fucking leg off a little bit. So I think it kind of showed that they're definitely flawed people and like they're like they don't know what the fuck they're doing and they're definitely super clumsy and like it's not like they're cunning and like sly with anything. I think that was like in my mind it's the only thing that makes sense with it. Otherwise
they're just like agents of chaos a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a scene that would make sense unless it's just trying to tell you of like make you realize it's like no, they're clumsy and they're fucked up here.
They're just buffoonish, hillbillies. They're not like, and again, that's the way it's tying back into real life. Because like Ed Gein wasn't a genius. He was a weird, he was a weird Wisconsin illiterate, poo brain. Like he barely functioned.
Poo brains tonight, guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there's certain words we can't say anymore, Meg.
Smooth fish brain.
Yeah. He's got dog brains. All he understands is kill and bad and good.
I still whacked out poo brains from Adventure Time. That's how I got whacked out poo brains.
Yeah. And I stole poo brains because I almost said the other word.
I don't say those words anymore. Any hoops.
But Ed Gein isn't a genius. He was just a guy acting on instinct and like what his desires were. And he had weird, upsetting desires of turning women into furniture and clothing.
Yeah, so, he was not cool.
Yeah, not a good. He is a real jerk.
Not cool.
Here, guys. I don't care who gets mad at me. I'm taking a hard stance on this. Ed Gein, not cool.
Not cool.
Not cool with Ed Gein. Don't want to be would not want to be pals with Ed Gein.
Yeah. But I think that's what translates into the movie is that, you know, Ed Gein was just this illiterate bumpkin, and that's, you know, he was a doof. And so they turned everybody who's part of the Sawyer family. They're all doofs on some level. Yeah. And like they were just slaughterhouse workers that turned cannibals.
Goddamn goof troop up there.
Yeah. So pretty much to wrap it up, we get our most iconic scene where we see Sally. Well, she first tries to get, or this is where Nubbins gets fucking fucked up and gets killed by the one truck driver. He ends up like trying to help Sally. Doesn't make it out. But Sally gets another truck and she drives out in the sunset, and then she lives a very happy, prosperous life forever after that point. That's pretty much how it
everything
ends.
was probably pretty cool. She went back to work on Monday. She was like, what a weekend.
No PTSD, no toxic traits for the rest of her life.
Guys, we know what happens to her. She becomes a Texas Ranger and searches Leatherface out and then finds him in a Wild West shootout ghost town.
Yep. I love that it's all canon. And that's all canon.
Mm-hmm. That's all canon. That's what happens.
Yeah. I don't think I'd seen this movie in a long time, and I kind of forgot how much I liked it. It's a really solid one. Really solid movie, guys, if you guys didn't already know. I do like, and I think like there's so much more we could elaborate on if we wanted to talk about this for another half hour, but I think like there's a lot of like notes about what was going on relevant to the time and place of that situation, which I think it's really I like those type of, I personally do like, again, it's why I don't love Steven's movie of
Ooh, you're in trouble. She's using full last name.
She's using the government long form.
When she gonna start using your middle name, you're fucked.
I don't know his middle name.
Good.
That's fine. We'll leave it that way.
It's my secret to keep.
It's Bart.
Yeah, like I really do. I think just like the imagery alone of like it infers so much of what's going on, and you like it allows you to feel the story because it does happen really fast. You know, it could have. I don't think if the imagery that we saw and certain things were in place, it could have felt like a very awkward or ineffective movie. So I think this movie does a great job at that.
Yeah. It's thankfully fast because then you get past all the terrible acting, because that is the one thing that really stuck out to me. It's also been a while since I've seen this original, and holy shit, is the acting abysmal.
Sally does a good job.
Everything that's not Sally is fucking terrible though, especially like Franklin and the other girl. The other girl is so god awful.
So bad.
Franklin is one of the most like consistently disliked characters in horror. And I think it's because, you know, obviously he's a bad actor. He's super annoying, like on purpose. Obviously the character's super annoying, but then you also feel bad for thinking he's annoying because he's in a wheelchair, which makes you hate him more.
But you know what I think it could, like, again, like not defending anything here. Of,
Don't
like,
make me feel bad about your disability, you asshole. You suck.
Of like what it feels like. Again, they keep doing it over and over again of like, having someone that you constantly need to help and who's kind of mildly helpless, but it also allows him to seem like a character who's super vulnerable. The only thing that they could have done better with that is like if they made him a stronger character, but I don't know how they could have done that, especially then. But I totally agree about the acting though.
Yeah, I think it's more about the actor in that role because I don't think he understands the role he's playing. Franklin is just somebody who's like paralyzed below the waist, but the actor at time plays him as also like mentally disabled.
Sure.
Because he's just like he seems to be always like sweating and staring off and like not and it's like you're not playing him as a real person. You know, you're playing him
just
as
like playing the disability a little bit.
Why didn't the Sawyer family adopt him? They probably could have adopted him. No, the only thing I was to say with the acting is like, I totally agree. And I'm not giving any passes for people like in the 70s fucking acting. I just think overall, the acting in general, it was like a gem to find someone who was like really solid in acting. But that's not saying that has any excuse for this movie. Is that I agree, full on.
Well, finding somebody who's good at acting on a budget.
Sure,
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, on this low budget. I mean, it's funny, and I think that's why this movie gets so much credit for like a couple things. One, it was very innovative for its time, but also it does feel like one of those movies that is a very pure communication of like Tobe Hooper's vision. You know what I mean? Even down to like the way he shoots things, which again, people think of this, especially people who haven't seen it a lot of times, or perhaps just like casual horror fans that know about the movie or have seen it once or twice. They talk about it as being this like really gory kind of slasher movie, but it's way more of a psychological horror movie than it is a slasher movie. There's like actually not very much blood at all.
Hardly any.
Yeah, except for, kind of right at the end, when Sally's all covered in blood.
Can we talk like slasher just for a minute? And obviously how we talk about it now, it's like very bloody and very like a knife going into someone's head, but we still get like, because I think they were like using a blunt force like object. You were just like not getting it as much. Granted, the blood budget.
It's very violent. It's just not gory.
Sure,
so like, of course, the smacking what's his face in the head, and then
you infer blood. I think in your mind a lot.
Well, Gunnar Hansen
again goes to the psychological.
Like Gunnar Hansen acts with a lot of physicality, which is great. And I'm not saying he's an unbelievable actor or anything, but he's obviously a foreboding guy, and he also acts with a lot of physicality. So like when he slaps the dude in the head, and the scene that sucker punches you, and then the way he slams the door is the scariest part, because of course the guy's like seizing, laying there like seizing and shaking and shit, and he just like very uncaringly, very swift, very much like you would imagine somebody who's going to dispatch an animal and wanting to do it in just a humane way or something. You're just acting very deliberately and very callously.
I feel
and
like
when he slams that door, it's just like fuck, that dude's super dead.
So I'm almost going back to, and again, I think you're hitting the head on the head about the psychological. I don't know if I really thought about that until you said it, but you're 110%. But I almost felt like when the door is shutting so abruptly is like almost this process. But I texted you guys last week saying that I just watched The Menu, and I don't know if you watched it, but if anyone who's watched it, I still
haven't watched it.
The only thing I'll like play into that is like there is a direct like very like he claps a lot. Like it's not giving away the movie at all, but you're almost creating this pattern of like thought and noise correlation. Not only is it jarring, but also I'm trying to think of like the Maslow's dog, where you hear the bell and you immediately Pavlov. You hear the bell and you like start drilling, but you hear the door and you're like, oh my God, someone's dead. I think like all these things play into what you start getting conditioned to in the movie, and I think that's really effective. It was a really terrible explanation for me, guys, but I think I got my point across.
No, I get what you're saying. But it's that sense of like, I think the another scene where it does this, and not necessarily with sound, but with the physicality, and this is, I think, a testament to Tobe Hooper's direction, is whenever, and I don't even remember her name, but the other woman in the van that's horrible at acting, horrible at delivering lines, I'll say. She's pretty good physical actor, I think.
Well, go whenever Pam, it's Pam, but
whenever he hangs her on the meat hook, though,
that's fine. But then when she jumps out of turn the sound off and watch when she jumps out of the freezer, it is so laughably shit.
No, but I also feel like that was weird that they even decided to do that. Like that is definitely a weak point. I'm like, in the freezer, she should have been dead. Like to me,
I kind of forgot that she even did that. To be honest with you, I kind of just like scrubbed that from my brain.
It's such a silly scene.
It's so cartoonish.
That is a weak point for the movie for sure.
But whenever he hangs her on the meat hook, you don't see anything. Obviously you don't see it. The meat hook going in or whatever. But the way Tobe Hooper shoots it, he shoots it from like basically the meat hook is in like the foreground when he carries her into the room,
right?
If I recall, and it's such an effective scene, and it's such a, because you see the pointiness and the shape of it, and you're like, oh, good God, I already know what's going to happen. And then it's just really impressive cinematography. And I think that like that is an example. And then also the way they do that effect, which is a super simple little effect, but just the way that they add a little bit of like weight to her body, even though she's obviously not hanging on anything. She could have been standing. She's probably standing on a fucking milk crate or something. But the way that he like directed her to do that, like, I don't know how to describe it. Just putting like
just
weight on the hook. Yeah. But it's almost like he drops onto the hook, and you could swear you saw it go in. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that like she was on a harness, and then like the weight, the gravity.
She could have been. You don't see her feet, so she could have just been standing on something. But anyway, it's the point is the physicality of that. The perspective they shot it from, the cinematography, everything makes it seem like you. Even when our boy in the wheelchair, Franklin, gets chainsaw to the chest, you don't see anything at all.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because it's filmed from behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just
but you know what's going on. And I think like if again, I feel like this movie feels like it was a higher budget than it was. Like I think, it just because of the way they decided to do all the different shots, I think it makes you think and feel different things that I would have not necessarily put it for a low budget film, for it being a low budget film.
Well, if you do the inflation on it, it's $750,000. It is.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's not. It's a low budget film, but it's not that low budget of a film. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they actually got an okay budget, and they spent it, I think, on the right things. And they obviously, Tobe Hooper was obviously a very, very competent director already. And and they made the most of their money.
Yeah. But I mean, like you were saying before about it being like a very singular vision type film, I think that comes across, it comes across in this film, and it's like, you see that with other directors for better or worse. Like, I mean, George Romero, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, those are very singular to his vision, just the way those films play out. So like you can tell a Sam Raimi film when you watch a Sam Raimi film.
Totally.
So yeah. So I think again that speaks to why didn't Tobe Hooper get a bigger chance? Because he had his own. He had his own thing.
Because you fucking rubes can't dig on Life Force. I think the
jerk-offs.
Goddamn idiots. What was the other thing I was just about to say? Shit, I got off on it. You got me thinking about Life Force. I got all excited. I don't know. The thought is gone.
I get it.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about me too. Now I'm thinking about alien boobs, and now I lost my train of thought. But it's Tobe Hooper is one of those guys that's like, oh, what were you saying? Something about a Raimi film, and I don't know. It's out of my head.
Yeah, it's talking about singular vision directors.
A Raimi film. Like that's what he was saying.
When
you
know artism.
Yeah.
Any Hoopers. That's all I got for this film.
You went back to that pun. I did
it twice.
It's discouraging. All right, let's get into my movie here. Listen, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, classic of the genre. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Perhaps the most distressing opening credits of any movie of all time.
Yep.
That music and the sound and the imagery in the beginning of this movie just sets the fucking tone so well. It's just distressing.
Yeah,
it does a lot of work.
Feel like like that. This is why I think like I already said all the things I need to say. Yes, is all I'm going to say. In response to that, I could repeat myself. Any hoops?
Yeah.
Any hoopers?
Doesn't feel like I know. You got to give up. Just give up on it forever.
Ain't gonna land.
Give up. It hasn't landed. It's missed by a fucking mile. It's like you have 3 arrows in your quiver. The first 2 missed by 40 yards. Just let the last one sit in there.
Man, you guys are really coming down hard on me in this episode. So,
because you're the champ, stupid.
I'm feeling it.
Get your shit together.
But I'm still a sensitive human, and I'm a sensitive champ.
Liar. Well, if you're gonna be the champ,
I'm also
get thicker
using that
skin,
against
bitch.
you guys. Fuck you.
I'm a sensitive human. Fuck you. Double fingers, double guns.
All right.
I just shotgun a beer right here.
Slamming a beer. I'm a sensitive human. Crush a beer can on your forehead.
That's the one thing that the audience doesn't see. Like, they hear Meg making her pleas of I'm a sensitive human, but they don't see all the time she's giving us the finger throughout the episode.
Okay,
1,000 times an episode, she gives us double middle fingers.
I'm going to let the audience believe what they want to believe.
I'm sure you are.
They can follow me on social media and get to know me as a
ultimate manipulator. Ultimate manipulator, Meg. All right. Then she blew a kiss. Now she's blowing kisses like she's like a royalty in a parade for some reason. I don't understand.
Thanks,
Grand
Marshal.
Gaslighting us. All right, let me talk about my movie, fucks. All right, so I went in a completely different direction.
So far in a different direction that it's not even a horror movie, but yeah, go ahead.
It is a weird take on a horror movie, that's for sure. It is a movie about horror movies more than it is a horror movie. I will agree with that.
Strong prediction that our roundabout at the end is going to be Steve just defending why his movie is the best when we're both like, it's not. Anywho, continue, Brian. I'm ready. I'm putting
you've
bets
listened
on
to
it.
The show before?
I'm putting bets on it. You can put that clip at the end, and then it'll be exactly what happens.
All right, so I'm going to talk about 2017's One Cut of the Dead, which is a Japanese, I would say, zombie horror comedy mockumentary kind of. It's a very, very unique film. I can safely say, you're not going to. I don't think I've ever heard of another movie that does some of the same things this movie does in the same way. It's directed by Shinichiro Ueda, and I am going to probably refer to the characters in this movie as like their roles on the set as opposed to their name, so I don't embarrass myself and butcher their names. So this is a pretty unique flick, and I would say, and I will go as far as to risk this on my behalf, if you haven't seen this movie, go see it. Like, I would feel bad depriving you of the experience of seeing this movie just completely blind. I was fortunate enough to go in the first time I saw it completely blind and absolutely fell in love with it the first time I've watched it. This is probably the 4th or 5th time I've seen it in the last, 4 or 5 years. Yeah, since it came out. Although I didn't see it until I think maybe 2018, 2019. I didn't see it upon it first coming out. So, I mean, it's kind of the old like mirror inside a mirror type of thing. I'll explain as we go on. You open on what is very obviously this low budget zombie movie production. And there's this scene happening. You kind of get the idea that the two actors in the scene, one being, supposed to be representing the living dead. He's like a zombie. He's attacking this other character, this woman. And it's just like not really coming together. And then the fourth wall pretty quickly breaks and you get the director come in, and you don't know anything about him at this point. But you get this he's this kind of loose cannon type of director. He's like berating the actors regarding, the way that they're performing. And then you start to get these like relationship dynamics between the cast and the crew. Especially if you're coming into this blind and there's something interesting or a twist or something like this to the movie, which I remember the first time I watched it feeling that same way. Everybody was like, just go, whenever you hear somebody go, just go in blind, don't look up anything about it. Then you know that there's going to be some sort of surprise or twist or something like that. So I was looking, I'm watching it with that kind of eye. And I remember picking up on these weird little pauses or strange off-camera glances that the performers are making, and you don't know why, but you're seeing a lot of them. You're seeing almost these like glimpses into the actors' like dynamics between each other, in that, they'll pause and then you almost see like a knowing glance, like say something else, you forgot your line or something like that, and you're not really sure why this is happening. They haven't brought you into that world yet. But ultimately, you spend the first 35 minutes of the movie, watching this zombie movie that essentially is a zombie movie production that is interrupted by a real zombie outbreak, wherein the director, in his like maniacal genius, or however you want to call it, not genius, psychopathic tendencies, whatever, decides that he's going to film his zombie movie that isn't really going according to plan, or he has planned a situation with this, like, it's pretty loose. They don't really talk about it that much, but essentially he does some sort of like ritual or magic spell or something like that turns people into zombies.
That basically had some sort of story behind it too, which I thought played into it.
Yeah, it's like this old water treatment plant that like had some sort of ritual that happened there. Yeah,
well, they were scientists. They played it like where they were doing testing on people, but like the undead of sorts.
But it's very flimsy. And they kind of intentionally don't really go into it. It's just like it's surface level, meant to be a flimsy zombie plot. And he has done this and brought real zombies into existence, to kind of punch up his, failing zombie movie production. So that's kind of what you're seeing for the first, 30 to 40 minutes. Now, you do notice pretty quickly that it's all like one, or seemingly all one sustained shot with one single handheld camera. Or that's what it appears to be. So it almost like reads like this, 30-ish minute found footage kind of faux documentary, like I said, of this real zombie outbreak that's happened during.
The title's like super on the nose.
Yeah. What, One Cut of the Dead, or the original?
No, like when I thought of it, I'm like, no, this is just going to be like, you know what I mean, like a one shot.
Yes.
Like like that's what I'm.
But I couldn't remember what was the movie. I don't even remember if they said it. What the name of the movie within the movie within the movie is?
It's One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah.
Well, the one that they're doing on TV in One Cut
is also one. It's all one cut.
It is.
We learned.
No, it's not. The original movie within the movie that they were shooting when the director is first yelling at the young actors. That's not called One Cut of the Dead. It's a fictional movie. It doesn't exist. But that fictional movie is called, like, I don't know, horror zombie bullshit. It's some bullshit.
Stupidity. When you go to the deepest parts of the Inception.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Which just is even in this one cut, one take, it was all it like immediately stood out to me that they broke the fourth wall twice in a way to break the fifth wall, because like you said, it starts with this badly acted scene and the director comes in and that breaks the fourth wall. But then throughout that, you get a number of times where the camera that we're watching through is acknowledged as a camera. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Where is the camera and who is the camera? Yeah. And even at the end, during the credits at the end, they actually show you footage from another camera behind that camera. So you're like, you're watching from a camera that's behind a camera that's behind a camera.
Yeah, you're watching the true production of the film.
Yeah. But then, so it is a very Inception type of feel to it. But so you're only seeing what's happening from this like third person camera perspective. And you get a lot of those like zombie tropes that are all compacted into that 30 minutes. And it's very predictable and but you kind of get the feeling that something is simmering right below the surface that you don't know about. As the viewer, you have not yet been brought into the fold on, you know? So like, yeah, they do the whole like, oh, they don't know what's happening. There's confusion. There's panic. Somebody gets killed. They come to terms with what's actually happening. Then someone is bitten and they're trying to conceal that they've been bitten. And what do we do? You know, a lot of this just like really common zombie tropes come about. And then the film you're watching, like I said, at about the, 35-minute mark or something like that, comes to its like climactic conclusion on this roof. And there's like this lingering shot of this woman, you know, the survivor on this like pentagram painted on the roof. That's how the zombies got, you know, summoned or whatever. And then you get this, the fourth wall's broken and you rewind to the director, you know, basically shooting a completely different movie. And I always thought the really interesting part about this is it really is like three movies. And, you know, it's like the three, like the traditional like 3-act structure is like broken up to like, it almost feels like three entirely separate movies that are shot differently, that are lit differently, that are even, I don't even know if they're shot on the same type of film. Like they look very different. So. Yeah. So the second act, if you will, after we've saw this one original, you know, we've just saw one cut of The Dead, right? The movie. And then all of a sudden you get this like almost 20 minutes or so where it's like this melodrama type of thing with this family, the director who plays the maniacal director in the movie. He's a real director in real life, and his family. And, you know, it's basically he's on a completely different project, and you get this whole completely different feel of this other production that he's on. And he's actually this very mild-mannered kind of director who you kind of get the feeling, now this happens over time, that his like vision for what he wants to be as a filmmaker, as an artist, has kind of been like snuffed out over time a little bit, where now he's been like basically pressured into doing this more like this commercial stuff. And like his wife was an actress who they don't really say why she stopped acting, but they just kind of like over time it starts to be a little bit more cartoonish over time as to why she stopped acting. It might have been
because of the kid type thing, maybe.
Well, like yes and no, because I think ultimately what you come to learn is that she had to stop acting because she was a danger to everyone around her.
She's super method.
Yeah, she's so over the top method that she loses herself in the character and does physical harm to other people. Like she broke an actor's arm on set, and she just completely gets lost in the character, so much so that it's like a danger to people around her and it negatively affects her relationships. But they now also have a daughter who I'm going to assume is like late teens, early 20s type of thing, who is like this aspiring like renegade filmmaker wannabe kind of thing that also I think represents the main character director's like that was what he was like when he was younger, I think. So like she's kind of following in his footsteps a little bit, but again, his like vision has kind of been like neutered over time.
Yeah, I must have missed that whole wife thing. I don't know like how I missed it, but yeah.
But he even goes as far as to he's being interviewed by a TV studio producers for this new project. And like, he even goes as far as to like, he has a line that he tells people that he's like, you know, I'm cheap and I'm quick and I'll get it done averagely.
Yeah, that he has kind of come to that conclusion that he is this commercial director and that's how he's going to be. And he's kind of, he has foregone his artistic morality, I guess, if you will. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, for the sake of just like being a consistent working director, you know? In any case, So they bring, basically these studio people come to him with an idea that they want to make a live action, like literally broadcast live, single shot, single take zombie movie. And he agrees to do it. Long story short, they start interviewing. He has this great script. He's interviewing and auditioning performers and cast members stuff. And he has a lot of his cast and crew, or specifically mostly the crew, but also some cast members that seem to work with him fairly regularly. And you quickly realize that the movie that we saw in the first roughly half hour of the movie is the movie that they ultimately made. Right. So now you're seeing how that came to fruition. So not only do we kind of get like the building up to it and the dynamics between the cast, you learn a lot about kind of all the wacky behind the scenes stuff that was happening, not just in the production, but actually the individual characters as well. Yeah. You get a lot about the wife and the director and their home life and that sort of thing. You also learn that, about the wife's former acting. You learn that the guy who was acting in the first scene, in the opening scene, who was supposed to be like the bad actor or whatever, he's kind of this like up and coming prima donna type of performer that the daughter is also like kind of, has like a teen idol type of crush on. I don't even know if it's crush as much as she's just like infatuating him as he's this teen idol type of person.
I think was like how it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it was like made it seem like it was like a connection between like the dad and the daughter again too. Like,
yeah. So he like specifically was like, okay, I got to hire this guy because she likes him.
Right.
But there's also like this in Japan, there's like this teen idol culture that's also very different than ours. So I think, yeah, it's not necessarily that she's like has romantic feelings for him as much as she's just kind of like infatuated with him. But in any case, and then one of my favorite characters, the sound guy, like the boom mic guy who has like tummy troubles. He's always like about to shit his pants.
Where are the porta potties?
Yeah. And he's always like, I need to be within a certain distance of a porta potty. And he's always like, I emailed you. He always has his line.
It's just the repeated.
Yeah. And they're like, sorry. And he's like, I emailed you.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
I just feel like just to kind of like we're getting into, I think what the silly part of this movie is like the first, I feel like the only thing I knew walking into it is I thought it was like a 30-minute zombie movie. Like literally that was it. That was all I had familiarity with. And then I was like, oh, there's credits, but there's another hour. What the fuck is happening? But what I appreciated it was like, it almost was like felt like this like behind the scenes, like again, we talked about a mockumentary, like it got really silly and you started having fun with it. And I think everything we're about to go into, I think showed this side of this movie that just, the zombie story aside, it was kind of a fun, silly story. And I appreciated that about it.
Yeah. The whole thing is a lot more lighthearted than it seems initially.
I enjoy the way the film is constructed because like you're saying, we get the 30-minute zombie film and things are off. Then you have the flashback that gives you the setup to all the characters and like motivations behind it. And then the last third of the film is you see the making of the film, the actual shooting of the film happen. And then everything that was built in those characters and everything that was wrong in the first 30 minutes is paid off by the two of them coming together. And you see, it's a very funny movie, and it's funny that they can replay a scene that already basically happened, but now it gives you extra context and now it's funny again.
Yeah. At first it was more like confusing and like funny and it's just kind of strangeness. But now you're seeing why they're acting the way they are, why there's pauses in the places that there were pauses. So you're seeing the behind the scenes, you're seeing how the sausage was made kind of thing and all the crazy things that went wrong. And they ultimately, came together as a group and more even specifically as a family. The director and his family came together to kind of make this thing a reality. But a couple other scenes I'll kind of mention that I really like. First of all, I really like the character, it was kind of dark character, and it's played mostly for laughs, but it is kind of a very unfortunate dark character. Is I forget his name. I'm not even gonna try to remember it. Was he the guy with the alcoholic? Yeah. It's this guy who was just like a raging alcoholic. And that's not the funny part. The funny part is how he talks about it in this very like show busy, laughing, trying to keep it light, even when he's talking about this like really terrible internal struggle that he's dealing with. That's like basically taking his family away from him and all this stuff, or he's lost, his family because of his alcoholism. And he's just like kind of trying to talk about it like it's his golf game or something. And it's making the director really uncomfortable, but he's trying to match his tone. And then he just bursts into tears. It's a very black comedy kind of scene.
But I think that gets brought up even more so when they utilize when he does get drunk and he ends up puking and it somehow comes out very perfectly in the movie, and you're like, oh, you know what I mean? It all comes full circle, even with like this mild like black comedy run. So his character specifically, and the guy, it's a comedy of errors, if you will, kind of behind the scene,
and they definitely have to adapt. I'm half wondering because there's a lot of just so like specifically this character we're talking about right now in the movie, his character's name is Manabu Hosoda.
Hosoda. That's the
but his actor name is Manabu Hosoi. And so like there's a lot, and then there's a character named Now, and then there's a character named Mal, played by Mal. So like there's even further depths to the like the meta of this film. But I think we're missing simply just because translation wise.
Well, I think there is. You mean literally like linguistically? Yeah, perhaps.
Literal linguistic translation as to why like they share so many similar names.
Yeah, so one thing that I saw, and I wish I would have rewatched this because I think the second time I watched this movie, I watched it on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, and he does a big deep dive into it and stuff. And I wish I would have rewatched that before. I just didn't have time to, but he does. I do remember them talking about how like most of, if not all of these actors were essentially unknown. When they made this movie. So I do wonder if they, wrote into the script some like characteristics or even inside jokes that were associated with the individual real life performers. Yeah. And that's why they named them things so similar to their
majority of them.
names.
I'm like looking at the cast right now. Majority of them went by like their characters were their full name. I mean,
or a slightly tweaked version.
Yeah, super slightly tweaked, which I think I kind of appreciated too, because I think like it allowed this idea to like get inside. I think it allowed you to believe the second half of the movie and like really get into it. It allowed the scene.
Yeah. Also, I think I might be wrong on this, but I feel like so there's the scene where they're prepping like the first table read, I believe. And they have somebody who's supposed to play the director, and
correct.
And they wind up not making it. But I think that character's name is the person who plays the director's actual name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I might be wrong about that. But like, it's just like it's a deeper level. So like the director. It's so hard to talk about this film in some ways. So like the director Higurashi, his name is Takayuki Hamatsu.
Yeah.
And I believe that's supposed to be the actor's name who plays the director or was supposed to play.
That'd be pretty fun.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So many levels.
The one at the table read.
Right. Yeah. It's so it's so confusing, and I think that's right. And it's just like another way to be funny.
Well, and this is I should mention this as well, is the director was not originally going to be in it.
Right.
But that guy didn't show, or something happened. He couldn't come. I don't remember exactly what.
Him, and because they lose two actors. They also
lose the one that's supposed to play the
makeup artist.
Yeah. The makeup artist as well.
And that's because the two of them are having an affair and they get in a car crash at the same time. So
that's right.
It's assumed that he was getting a little road sloppy toppy. They get in a car crash. But also it's kind of it's funny because the two, like, they're together, they're having an affair, and then the people who wind up replacing them are a couple that's actually together.
Yeah. And the one who replaces, of course, the makeup artist character is his wife, who, again, she was the very method actor who was like, would lose herself in the roles. And they just kind of, up until this point, they just insinuate that, like, she stopped acting. She was a fantastic actor, but she had to stop for this, for like the betterment of the family, or like, you know, kind of thing. But in any case, so you know, the last 40 minutes is basically the behind the scene, or the behind the camera version of what you saw in the first 35 minutes of the movie. So you see that there was just a lot more chaos going on behind the camera. You know, the drunk guy, you know, who kind of gets hammered, and then he ends up playing to their advantage because he's just like belligerent, you know, and just blacked out drunk. So, and he's throwing up on people, which again is like creating genuine fear and disgust from the other cast members, but it's being played for real in the movie. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, like I said, there's so many layers of kind of meta to this, in that they are doing a film wherein real things happen on a film production set. And in this instance, a real thing does happen that is being played for real, but it was not in the script. So all of these crazy curveballs come their way, and they have to improvise and change. And it's rare. I mean, it's extremely well written movie.
I think it's really fun. I think I appreciate the movie even more just seeing this silly, like, a quick, like, literally we're throwing the hand into the like building. Yeah. You know, all the silly little things you had to do there. I think it allowed me to appreciate it all a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, they're like fill the time. You know, hey, we got
seen a movie like this. I just don't think I've seen a movie where it was like this sort of movie within a movie. See, maybe you have. I don't know.
No. This film is like so specific to all the things it sets up.
Sure.
And apparently, the film was inspired by a play called Ghost in the Box, and I just couldn't find anything to like. How does that play out? Because I mean, obviously, if it's based on a play, you're thinking 3-act structure. So like, I can't think of another film that does something like this off the top of my head, and is like so satisfying in the way it plays out. I can give you a suggestion for another film that's also just kind of fun and satisfying, and is like a one-cut film. Is Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. I believe is what it's called.
Oh, you've mentioned this one to me before.
Probably, yeah. It's not a horror film. It's much more of a sci-fi film, but it's also just like a one cut. But the entire film is a one cut.
Film. I think you've mentioned that to me before.
Guys.
Or is it on Tubi? Oh, what's going on the list, baby? Maybe one of I out loud laughed at this every time I've seen this movie, is the sound guy. It's like heavily implied all the time that he has like diarrhea. He has like chronic diarrhea. And so there's all these little awkward scenes of him. Even in the initial movie that you see, he gets captured on screen acting in a very peculiar way.
He almost seems like a zombie.
And they're like, what is he doing? And then he gets, you know, and they shove him outside, and then he gets puked on, or another guy gets puked on and screams, and then they're like, okay, well, that made it. Anyway, the scene that cracks me up is when he is literally shitting in the bushes. Well, first of all, there's this very specific like Japanese way of suggesting that you have to poop in a movie. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's never like, oh my God, I have to poop, like grabbing your butt and running away. It's always this like, you're just rigid and stiff, and like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like, it's a trope that you see in Japanese movies specifically about having to poop. And it's this like,
it's a squeeze walk.
It's squeeze walk, but also being like kind of frozen with fear kind of thing. And this guy does that. And then he's over there shitting in the bush, or not even a bush, in like the weeds.
Yeah.
And they're running out of time because this is all one shot. So like his cue's coming up, and they're applying his makeup while he's shitting. in the bushes or in the weeds, and he's crying. It's such a funny scene. He's like weeping while they apply his makeup as he's shitting.
It's the crying that does it for me because I don't know what it is, and there's like some memory I can't pull back, but it's just like something about crying and shitting in the bushes.
It's just really funny.
I think we really need to dive into this.
Yeah,
I think it might have been like a family vacation thing, and like, yeah, you're just not wanting to, and it's embarrassing.
Let's talk about your PTSD, bud.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm over it. It just makes me laugh now.
Laughing's a trauma response. Anyway, so everything's a trauma response. Yeah. So, and then there's the storyline of the cameraman with a bad back and his like very eager protege. He falls, he slips, hurts his back. His like young eager protege like picks up the camera, runs with it. So it's this very like team thing, whatever. Other thing that I absolutely love, and my favorite character is, and I think her name is it Now?
Mal.
That's the
camera woman. The one that really wants this aspiring?
No, the wife.
Oh, Harumi.
Is that what it is? I thought it was a one syllable thing. I'm gonna get it mixed up. Anyway, yeah, the director's wife is my favorite character in this. First of all, she is probably the best actor. Like, she's the best at acting as an actor, but she also has like a genuine. It's not scary because the whole feel isn't scary, but like her face when within the movie. Within the movie. So the movie you see in the first 30 minutes of her face when it's all like covered in blood, and she's basically saying like, we have to kill the girl who got bitten. Her face is like so dead serious. And then when you see it the second time, through a very different lens, it's even more like, oh my God, you're like, she's lost it. She's out of her mind. And one of my favorite things is the young kind of prima donna actor who's kind of like consistently bullying the director. She just smacks the shit out of him. Just slaps the shit out of him. She's like, get going, you little bitch. She's just smacking him in the face and just slapping the shit out of him. And then, she completely loses it. And so the last, there's a good 10 minutes in there, I think, where they're just trying to corral her and make sure she doesn't hurt anyone too bad. But she is literally like jump kicking people and just going fucking bananas. But like I said, ultimately, it's this whole kind of family and team coming together thing. The director's family, gives him strength and inspiration to kind of like pull it all off. Ultimately, the wife, has this like climactic scene where he like has to choke her out basically to get her to like, because she's completely off script. She's just out of her fucking
She has
gourd.
like the axe in her head, and she's like,
and then she pops up and screams. Yeah.
Which is the most unexplainable thing that happens when you watch the first 30-minute.
You have no idea why that happened.
Why did that happen? Yeah, why did that happen?
Zombies don't do this. They
just play it off. They just play it off.
Yeah.
But
it's
anyway,
like when you're playing a game when you're a kid and you're like, no, you didn't. You didn't like kill me.
You didn't get me.
You didn't get me.
I have force field. But yeah, that was the other one. Like, so I watched this movie last night for the first, or it was Kate watched it with me, and it was her first time seeing it. And it was funny how quickly she picked up on stuff that I didn't even the first time, going in completely blind, and she was as well. But even at the end of the first 30 minutes where you see the movie for the first time at the beginning and they're looking down, they're doing, essentially like the crane shot that ultimately becomes a big plot point at the end. She's like, why is it being shot like that? And I was like, that was one thing I didn't really remember being that curious about the first time I saw it. But ultimately what happened was they had a crane, a little mini, a little mini rig to do like a crane shot. And it got broken during all the chaos and mayhem. So they had to do a human pyramid, like cheerleader style, to get the camera up to the highest level, to get the downward shot, to like get that, kind of credit scene, payoff shot at the end. And there's this whole like countdown where, because they're live, so they got to hold on to it for like 15 more seconds. And so it's this kind of very climactic thing at the end. And then, and then ultimately when they pull it off, you get this like very feel good, satisfying scene of them like, hey, we pulled it off kind of thing. And then he shares this moment with his daughter. And then interestingly enough, you do during the credits get the POV of the, camera behind the camera kind of thing. So it's, it's just a very unique movie. It was shot for, I believe, $25,000, equivalent of 25,000 American. And it made back, it became a phenomenon in Japan. It was originally only released to like 6 theaters. So it was almost like a Halloween, but even more so in that it was only like 6 theaters initially. And then it ended up, I think, doing really well on the festival circuit. And then it got a really wide release. And then it ended up getting spun off into TV movies. And it made something crazy, 2,000 times its budget or something like that.
I think it wound up like 27 million.
Yeah. It was like almost $28 million on a $25,000 budget.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely insane. So, and it was all just like, it was a really, really clever, well executed script. And like, just a kind of labor of love film that just like struck with the right audience at the right time. So,
really clever film. It's hard. It's hard to think, like I already said, I can't think of any one film that sticks out like this. But like, it feels like they took something that Christopher Guest would do, just because of all the comedy of errors that happens, and but they don't do the talking head parts.
No. Yeah.
But
no, it's all very like shown in its, I don't know how to put it, I guess, cinematic way. You know what I mean? In that not only is it literally in a cinematic way in the first 30 minutes, but then the second, like that middle act is almost like like I said, almost shot like this, like I don't know, melodrama kind of thing, comedic melodrama. And then the last one is like, comedy of errors type of film. So it's almost like 3 distinctly different films. It's unlike any movie I've seen.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and like that's part of the production, because like that first 30 minutes, because it is meant to feel like a one take. I don't know for sure that it is a full one take 30 minutes.
I don't think it is. No, like I feel like there's a couple times where like the camera spun that I'm like, they probably cut right there.
Yeah, there's enough camera spins, and I even think when they wipe the blood off the camera, that's actually a cut. And I think that's like a smart cut, because you wouldn't think it would be there.
Sure.
But it just, I feel like it just, when they wipe the blood off, they shift in the frame. And I was like, that might have been a cut. But,
yeah, because you're also seeing plenty of things that are happening off camera. Off the camera that is making the movie about making a movie.
Right.
Like the scene when the guy's shitting in the weeds, putting his makeup on.
Yeah.
Like that's, nobody saw that except for us as an audience.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of brilliant in that, in the way like they film that, and it's a one take, so there's not going to be good lighting, so that's why it doesn't look well lit as the second half does. It doesn't look. They probably shot on a lower grade camera, than the other ones, and then because the first third and the second, or the first third and the last third occur in the same location, you save shit tons of money on fucking budget. Like it's basically a one location shoot. There's like the apartment, a couple outside scenes, and the TV studio is the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they make it feel, like I said, the way they shoot it, the fact that they likely use a couple of different cameras, it's lit entirely differently. Yeah. It gives a lot more like, I don't know how to say it, dynamic kind of presence to the set. Like you feel like you've been in more places, even though you've really only been in like 2 places.
Right.
But yeah, so that's it. Guys. That's my movie.
Yeah.
Here's your movie.
Great movie. But is it the best horror movie?
Yeah, listen, I knew I was taking a risk there because it's more a movie about a horror movie than it is a pure horror movie. Yeah. But you don't know that at first.
No, not
when
at first.
When you watch the first 30, 40 minutes, you think you're watching a horror movie and you're meant to think that, and you are essentially watching a horror movie. You only come to learn later that you're watching a movie about the making of a horror movie.
And you still feel like it's possible that a real horror element could be introduced at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you're not sure exactly where it's going, but then it just kind of ends on a family feel good thing, which is fine.
Yeah,
like
you could think the wife might chop somebody's arm off. Like you really think that might happen because she is out of her mind wielding an axe, you know?
Yeah. But like you could, you know, in the end you wind up going, oh, well, the whole zombie thing is a framing device. And like, it could literally be any other genre of film they were shooting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could have been like a TV sitcom, and it still had all the, you know, comedy of errors things happening in it. But you know, like shooting a zombie film does lend more to like slapstick stuff.
Yeah.
So
because they're slow moving and you could be dumb and all that stuff.
And you get scenes with the wife kicking real actors. You know,
yeah.
You know, so you get slapstick out of that. So, you know, but yeah, it could have also just been another comedy or an action film or something else. So,
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
All right. Where are we at here, guys? We going to do a little voting?
I think I get to choose the order as well. Once again, default
that is
to me.
The plan.
I've already thought about this. I was thinking about it.
I wish our listeners could see all your hand gestures like that. There's just a lot.
Maybe at some point if we go to Patreon,
yeah.
we'll do video. Maybe we can release this video and people can see how distracted I get as well. Majority of the episode, I'm like, ugh. Or they get to see you kiss your sweet daughters goodnight. You know, that's also
they always sneak in at some point and I give them a kiss. And then me just like eating a bunch of M&Ms.
Lighting, which I also realized on this episode fucks on my eyebrows. So we're not putting this on air.
Your Nicholas Winding Riffin neon demon lighting.
Steve, you're gonna go first to vote. Brian, you're gonna go second to vote. Bitch is going last.
I see how this shit goes.
Sure. So obviously I'm not changing my first initial vote. Henry rules.
I'm not either. Yeah, I'm not either.
Texas Chainsaw has not aged well for me. It is like, I appreciate it. It's fast and like there's still a lot of good things in it because of the way Toby shot it. And just like anything that doesn't involve an actor is great. But when you involve an actor, it gets bad sometimes. And there's, you know, thankfully he kills off a lot of those actors pretty quickly and the movie itself moves fast. But also that budget, it inflated. It's almost $1 million. Whereas One Cut of the Dead is only $25,000.
And in 1970s money, $25,000, that was like it was like $18 in a pack of smokes.
Yeah, you could get a house for that.
If you deflate that the other direction.
Right. You guys already lost your chance to nix this as an option for budget and inflation.
But I can take it into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah.
All you want.
We can consider who did the most with what they had. So
sure. I did say I was pulling a Megan.
Yeah. I will still vote for Texas though, because it is a good singular vision film and it did spawn a whole bunch of other things. I don't think anybody will ever be able to make another film that's like One Cut of the Dead. You can't just make something like that. The same way you can't, I don't know if you guys saw Skinnamarink yet.
Oh no, I was actually thinking I might watch it tonight.
Negative things though, guys. Okay,
sure. Well, I mean, it's a divisive film.
I think I'm going to get stoned and watch it literally right after this.
I couldn't find it on Shudder. I don't know why. I was having literal issues like Googling it or searching it on.
Do you have
Shudder.
the like Amazon or like the AMC plugin thing? No, you just have the Shutter app.
Well, yeah, no. I have my Fire Stick go to specifically the Shutter app, which has been my least problematic thing. I'll try it again. I will try it again, but I was having issues, guys. Okay. I'm just gonna say I'm stupid. I'm a dummy girl.
You should see all the hand gestures she's doing right now. It's like fucking pantomiming everything she said.
Because people would understand the irony of like how I think they would understand my sarcasm more if they saw my hand gestures.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You probably would.
Yeah.
There's something missed in the translation, but okay. With that film though, like the director won't be able to reproduce that film as his second film because people have already seen behind like everything he's done, so you just can't redo it. So like it is a singular vision, but Tobe Hooper was able to recreate what he did. He made a more Hollywood film, and it inspired more people to do what they did, and probably even inspired McNaughton a little bit when he made Henry. So but I would also say Truman Capote inspired him as well with In Cold Blood. So that's why I'm picking Texas. I just One Cut of the Dead is a singular vision, and it's a singular film that can't be reproduced, even though they made a French remake and I never watched it. I don't care.
They watch it? Really?
It's called Final Cut. Yeah, it's called Final Cut.
Ooh.
Fucking lame. All right. I am it pains me because Texas Chainsaw is one of my favorite movies. And I know for all it's worth, the bad acting, whatever, I don't really care about that. I love the movie. I would say that if we're going to weight this, and I'm actually surprised, Steve, that you didn't lean into this harder, because Steve's always the stickler for does it fit within the topic of the showdown.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that hurts this the most is two things. One, it's not a micro budget movie, Texas Chainsaw. Like, it is low-ish. It's a low budget movie. It didn't cost millions and millions of dollars, but it cost I can't even do the math on the top of my head. 4 times 7, whatever. It costs 30 times probably with inflation as much as my movie cost.
Sure,
you know what I mean. And it did a lot of revolutionary things. But I also, and this is not. I mean, this is your decision. I'm not ripping on it. This is just like when my vote. I have to take this into consideration. When I think micro budget, I think not necessarily unknown, but stuff that kind of overcame some
adversity and found its
adversity or boundaries, you know, that like it was an outsider type of movie. And I get Tobe Hooper's was to a certain extent, but also it was like fairly well financed.
Yeah.
I get these like outsider productions that were really great or really influential or really enjoyable in spite of the financial challenges that it dealt with. And I think Henry does that better. I don't think it's as good of a movie. It's certainly not as influential of a movie, but it's a really effective movie. And like it absolutely, with all the adversity that it dealt with the MPAA and getting an X rating and then still making a lot of money back and then becoming like a cult classic movie. And also
classic?
like,
I'd be curious.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's got a huge following.
It has such a cult classic. They made a sequel 12 years later that was terrible.
Gross.
Yeah,
but there wasn't anything after that. Let's be clear. Anywho, I'm gonna not open this can of worms right now.
No.
Continue, Brian.
And yum 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 yum. She turns into a cat. Yum 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 yum. I just don't. And also, listen. Long history. I take exception to Meg picking monster movies all the time. Like I pick a fairly little known Japanese movie. Steve picks this like cult classic. Meg picks Texas
guys.
Chainsaw.
You guys both have a far better repertoire of horror movies.
It's not even that. It's just like this is like one of the top 10 most like this is one of the top 10 most known horror movies of all time.
Say I was pulling a Meg. You know?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was that. Honestly, if it was Blair Witch, like I would pick Blair Witch, because Blair Witch, even though I don't think Blair Witch is as good of a movie and is certainly not as influential as a movie as Texas Chainsaw, it was truly a micro budget movie that was promoted super cleverly.
Would you have chosen Creep if I would have chosen Creep? Because that was actually the other option.
Creep I would have put alongside, although Creep had although it was made for a lot less, I have the feeling Creep was more of an, I don't want to say
that was an easier
insider movie,
but it was an easier road. It had an easier road.
Yes, it had.
Heard. I see where your brains are going at,
directors. Boys. Yeah. In any case, so I'm going with Henry. I'm picking Henry.
Yeah. Just the not defend myself, but explain myself, I guess. Like you're absolutely right, Brian. As far as like, you know, what embodies micro budget better, it's just yours isn't as much of a horror film.
Like, I can understand that.
If you picked Skinamarink, which I don't love, but it has the same thing of being made for $15,000 and breaking into the normie space. Like that movie shouldn't have broken out as it did, or it's surprising that it did. I would have picked it over Texas, just because it has that same thing of like not having an easy road, being a nobody filmmaker made for nothing, and it makes it into this, you know, world that everybody knows it now.
Yep.
Go ahead, Meg. Your turn.
Go the fuck ahead, Meg.
Go fuck ahead. I'm not diving back into the same argument we had earlier. I already walked into this knowing what my second pick was. Sorry, no one swayed me either way. I agree in general that I don't feel like Brian's film hits like a lot of the horror elements. It is a subgenre of zombie films, though. In my book, it does hit some zombie elements, even though taking its own liberties. That I'm not gonna delay this anymore, and I'm choosing Brian's film as my second.
Oh no! Sure. Well, see, this is the thing. This is going to result in probably in Meg winning, right? Because now it goes to the listeners. Although, guys, let me insist upon something. Listen to the episode before you vote. Now, of course, I'm preaching to the choir here, because the people who are hearing my voice right now have, of course, listened to the episode. But we are going to have to take it to the social medias. And you know what? I'm very sad because I already had a fucking gem of a punishment movie picked out, and Steve threw a goddamn curveball. I thought I was going to get him with this, but I understand it's not a pure horror movie.
I almost thought Steve was going to think he was going to get me with his. I almost thought he was playing those games.
Yeah.
No, I just picked it because it's a good movie. It's effective.
Yeah. Sure, Brian. Or sure, Steve.
Learn who we are. Sure. This is the second time you've done this in this episode.
You voted. He voted for you, and you're giving him shit.
I have dementia. Let's just say that.
He voted for your movie, and she's going, sure, Steve, sure.
Yeah.
It's like you literally voted for a movie. In any case, so we're going to have to take it doesn't happen very often. We're going to have to take it to the social medias, and let you guys decide who's going to take it home. So we got a cliffhanger, guys. We got a to be continued, TUBI. So
can we, like we know no, but Meg's going to win just by name recognition only. But like, can we limit it so that she's not allowed to reshare the Instagram story? Nobody gets to reshare the Instagram story. It stays on. It stays on Halloween is forever, and that's it.
It stays on Halloween is forever.
The only thing I will do
Okay.
Because what I did before
call
was
every one of your friends.
basically, but on Instagram. I sent it to all my friends.
She's going to DM it all. Like
No,
she's going to DM the story.
Hey, Brian, you will be able to see if you get story shares. You both will be able to see.
True. But you could screenshot it and send it.
No. I'm not going to. What I'm going to say is that I will share it to my own personal story.
Mm.
I'm going to give my pitch. I don't think it's going to be a hard pitch.
Wait.
But any hoops.
No, you don't
I
share.
thought you just said you weren't going to do that.
No,
Don't
I'll
share.
share it to my story. So, no, you guys.
No, you don't
You're
share.
going to tag me. You're going to tag me.
No, I'm not going to tag you.
No, none of us.
Okay,
None of us
so
are
none of
sharing.
us are sharing.
None of us are sharing it to our personal.
None of us are sharing.
Okay,
Not
well
even
then
gonna
I need a
tag us
screenshot
in our
of the
personal
winnings
page.
because I don't have access to our Instagram. Okay,
You should.
do.
You could.
you need to send it to me again. Send it to me again.
It's the same login.
I'm sorry you lost the password.
Fuck you guys. Send
No,
it
I
to
will.
me.
I will screenshot. I will screenshot it. Guys.
Vote for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Don't do
you
that.
Know
Don't
you
vote
like
for.
it.
That's like voting for the Patriots to win the Super Bowl.
Don't be
or some
basic.
shit. Like
You can't help when things are good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Check it out on the social media. This just gives us another reason why you should go follow us on the social media so you can help us pick in dire situations like this, guys. You get to decide who the fucking champ is, who is ultimately going to decide who the next mini-zode is. So go check us out on the social medias. I will post it to our Instagram stories in the coming days, guys. Go on there, vote, decide who's going to win the showdown for this month. It usually don't happen like this, but sometimes it do. So, all right. Anything else we need to mention regarding the predicament we're currently in?
No.
No, this is it.
No, you just have to stay tuned and we'll announce what the episode
they can't
is.
see you. Meg is over there for some reason doing double deuces with a big smile on her face. I don't know why.
Because it's fucked up and it's a joke, but it's a joke for you guys. Okay.
She's Nixon campaigning at us.
Yeah, she's out
It's
there
a
double
fucking
deucing
joke.
it.
Man, my jokes.
It's a fucking joke. You are a fucking joke. For the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I am your FeBREWary champion.
No. But I'm Steve.
All right. Don't vote for Meg. Bye.
Don't vote for
See,
Meg.
this is fucked up, guys. You can't
Fuck you, Meg.
anti.
Bye.